Welcome to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. We bring you 2 daily uploads, ensuring you never miss a moment of the action. Stay tuned, subscribe and let's dive into today's story. 051 Beasts always walk alone, but cattle and sheep come in groups. 1. As the eyes, mental power can detect in all directions within 100 meters without blind spots, and the perspective hanging is the basic function. Then it is to attach the mental power to the surface of the body. For example, on the legs, it can not only reduce air resistance, generate propulsion, greatly increase the speed of body skills, but also achieve an effect similar to light kung fu. Sheng estimates that if his mental power is strong enough, he can even use his mental power to float in the air. There is also the fist, which can enhance the explosive power of the fist to a certain extent. Even used alone. Sheng has tried it, and he can grasp a weight of about 20 kilograms entirely by mental power. This is almost equivalent to the distance fetching described in the novel, Superpowers, and the like. There are also direct use of mental power to beat people. Sheng only tried this on the zombies in the dream space, and the effect was not very satisfactory. Considering that zombies are almost unconscious, the power of this move may be much stronger than he expected. In short, mental power is like a panacea for Sheng. It can be used anywhere, and it works wherever it is used. It is simply not too good. Presented in front of everyone at this time is a closed passage with 4 walls made of pure steel plates. About 2 meters wide, it can accommodate 4 people walking side by side. Someone reached out and knocked on the wall, and there was a dull sound from inside the wall. The faces of the students in Qingyuan City became ugly. This proved that the surrounding walls were much thicker than they had imagined. Sheng stood in the corner and watched the group of teenagers doing various researches. In fact, when he first came down, he had clearly explored everything below. The steel plates on the surrounding walls were more than 50 centimeters thick, and there was still cement behind the steel plates. Basically, there was only one road in front of me. In addition, there are some unexpected gadgets hidden in the walls. Of course, all these need to be discovered by the teenagers themselves. It seems that this is the so-called camp entry ceremony. Among the students in Qingyuan City, a tall, thin, handsome boy with a brow full of pride said with a sneer, "I thought it would be some special trick, so that's it. It's boring." Someone shouted, "Lin Sheyu, did you know that this camp entry ceremony is tricky? Fuck, don't remind everyone, I just fell, and now my butt hurts like it's about to burst." The boy named Lin Sheyu glanced at the other party with disdain, and said, "You don't even have the ability to adapt to changes, how dare you call yourself a formal warrior? You!" The young man who was ridiculed looked ashamed and indignant, but he didn't dare to take any action. "Okay, stop arguing. We all came from the same city, and we entered this training camp with great difficulty. We don't want any of our companions to be eliminated. Hurry up and find a way to pass this assessment." A tall, sweet-looking girl came out to smooth things over. "Is there any way? Just keep going forward." Someone pursed his lips and said, "Didn't the person who let us in just now say that we have passed the barrier when we reach the exit? Let's walk together as a group. Even if there are any tests in the future, we will definitely pass. After all, we have 10 first-level official warriors." Suddenly, someone pointed at Sheng in the corner and said, "Then what about this guy? He's not our Qingyuan City." Immediately, the eyes of a group of people all focused on Sheng. These people stared at Sheng, their expressions gradually becoming playful. "It's just right, I don't know what danger is ahead, let him be a thunderbolt," someone proposed. Immediately someone agreed. "That's a good idea." The beautiful girl who called everyone to unite before couldn't bear it. "This isn't good, she is here to participate in the training camp anyway." The boy named Lin Sheyu comforted her with a smile, "What's the matter? A person like him who came in through connections and has never passed the first level official martial artist assessment will be rejected in a few days even if he enters the training camp. Out. Never mind. That is. Lu Sheng listened amusedly, shook his head and stood up. Yo, quite proactive. Lin Shayu nodded and said, Boy of Beihe City, if you behave well later, we may consider pulling you and letting you get away with us. Lu Sheng smiled calmly, and said lightly, Beasts always travel alone, but cattle and sheep travel in groups. After finishing speaking, Lu Sheng walked into the passage without looking back. The teenagers in Qingyuan City were all taken aback when they heard what Lu Sheng said. Lin Shayu quickly reacted, with a look of shame and indignation on his face. Fuck, do you dare to say that I am a cow and sheep? Lin Shayu rushed forward, raised his fist and tried to hit Lu Sheng on the back. At this moment, in the passage between Lin Shayu and Lu Sheng, the steel plates on both sides suddenly shrank, and a black shadow emerged from the wall. Lin Shayu was startled, and shrank back abruptly. Immediately afterwards, it seemed to be a chain reaction. The sound of click, click steel plates shrinking continuously sounded in the passage, and black shadows sprang out one after another. In just a few seconds, the originally somewhat empty passageway seemed to have been filled with tall and burly bodies. There are black shadows blocking the way almost every few meters, leaving only a small gap between each other. When the teenagers in Qingyuan City saw the black shadow clearly, their expressions changed. Someone blurted it out. Organ puppet. 052 Fuck, there are 2 levels. 2. Each of the black shadows that appeared in the passage was nearly 2 meters high. Long hands and feet, smooth surface, no facial features except for a pair of reddish eyes. Their whole bodies are made of dark yellow unknown alloy, and the joints are covered with thick rubber, giving people an extremely thick and solid sense of security. Of course, if it is a dark mass standing in front of you, this sense of security instantly turned into a sense of oppression. The teenagers in Qingyuan City are like this at this time. Including Lin Shayu, the faces of a group of teenagers all became extremely ugly, as if they had eaten flies. The puppets of the weakest organization have the strength of more than a formal warrior. There are so many here. Is the training camp trying to kill us? Fuck, this place is so small, there's nowhere to run. What should I do? Although the mental power had already detected the existence of these guys, Lu Sheng still felt a little strange when they popped up completely and appeared in front of him. The mechanism puppet is actually a kind of martial arts robot named after the mechanism wooden man popular in the ancient martial arts era. It can be regarded as the product of the combination of technology and martial arts. The bodies of these mechanism puppets are completely made by modern industry, but advanced programs containing various martial arts moves are stored in their brains. When it is activated, it can exert a fighting power comparable to that of a formal warrior. Lu Sheng had only seen this kind of thing on TV before. Some wealthy families will buy this kind of mechanism puppets as bodyguards, and some high-end martial arts gyms will use mechanism puppets as sparring partners. It is said that the highest level organ puppet is comparable to a 4th level warrior, but the cost is much higher than the cost of training a 4th level warrior. It was the first time that Lu Sheng saw this kind of high-tech product, so he couldn't help being a little curious, so he approached one to observe more carefully. Fool! Lin Shayu, who witnessed this scene behind him, showed a speechless expression on his face, and said, "This bumpkin in Beihe City has probably never seen a mechanism puppet. This kind of mechanism puppet that has been released from restrictions will immediately sense the approach of a moving object. Attack!" The puppets of the 1st level organs are made of special alloys, and their fists are so hard that they can cause internal bleeding to a 1st level warrior. This kid didn't even have a 1st level martial artist, but he dared to put his head on it. He was probably going to be beaten into a concussion. The other teenagers also showed gloating expressions on their faces, waiting to see a good show. Only the sweet-looking girl had a worried expression and opened her mouth to remind Lu Sheng, but she was afraid of attracting the attention of the puppets. As Lin Shuyu said, Lu Sheng took 2 steps forward slightly. There was a red light in the eyes of the 2 mechanism puppets blocking him, and they raised their fists almost at the same time, and hit him hard. Snort! Lin Shuyu folded his arms around his chest, with a playful expression on his face. Before Lu Sheng said that he was a cow and sheep, he was worried that he didn't teach Lu Sheng a lesson, and now he is happier than anyone else to see Lu Sheng's misfortune. Careful! The sweet-looking girl couldn't help but finally cried out. Just when everyone thought they were about to see a horrible scene, what happened in the next second made them all open their eyes wide. Boom! Boom! 2 muffled sounds. 2 dark alloy fists the size of a sea bowl, one on the left and one on the right, were held firmly by a long, white palm. During this process, Lu Sheng's body didn't even shake a bit. I actually picked it up. I caught it. The youths in Qingyuan City showed incredulous expressions on their faces. Lin Shuyu, who folded his hands on his chest, was also stunned for a moment, and suddenly stood up straight, wondering if he had read it wrong. The puppets of the first-level organs are puppets with copper skin and iron bones, and their extreme combat power is close to 1000. They still have basic martial arts moves in their minds to deal with the operation of the program, completely crushing most of the first-level warriors in actual combat. Even some second-level warriors may not be able to suppress it. After all, this is a machine and not a human being, so it won't get tired or get hurt. Although Lin Shuyu has always been very confident, he also believes that he would never dare to face the fist of a first-level organ puppet. The strength gap is there, isn't it looking for abuse? But now, he unexpectedly saw that student from Beihe City, who came in through connections, whose strength hadn't even reached the level of a first-level martial artist. Actually, just relying on 2 fleshy palms, he forcibly received the full blows of the 2 mechanism puppets. This scene was even more astonishing than seeing the old man selling pancakes downstairs suddenly leaping 3 meters high and suddenly turning into a martial arts master. Just when Lin Shuyu and a group of youths from Qingyuan City were in a daze, an even more astonishing scene happened. Crunch! The tooth-piercing sound of mechanical extrusion and collision sounded. The teenagers widened their eyes and watched. Under a pair of white and powerful palms, the arms of the 2 mechanism puppets are being lifted bit by bit at a constant speed. Because of the conflict between the machine parts and the program instructions, a large number of sparks burst out from the arm joints of the organ puppet, accompanied by bursts of piercing sounds. Like groove. A teenager opened his mouth wide and made an unbelievable sound. This guy's strength is stronger than that of a first-level organ puppet. Damn, is he still human? The others also looked shocked, and could hardly find words to describe their inner feelings at this moment. That sweet-looking girl had already covered her mouth with her hand, and her beautiful round eyes were full of shock and surprise. Ha ha ha! At this time, a burst of laughter suddenly sounded out. Everyone followed the sound, only to see Lin Shuyu laughing, shaking his head and laughing at himself. I was almost deceived by the people in the training camp. These are puppets of first-level institutions. They are clearly semi-finished products that are less than first level. The combat power is far inferior to the real level 1, it's just a bluffing appearance. It should be like this, if there are so many real first-level puppets here, how could anyone pass the test? Lin Shuyu pointed at Lu Sheng, who had pinched the 2 mechanism puppets with sparks flying all over his face, and shouted at everyone with an exaggerated expression, "Do you really think that a person whose strength is not even a first-level warrior can be at the same time? Can it withstand the attacks of 2 first-level agency puppets?" The teenagers blinked their eyes, their expressions were a little dazed, obviously they couldn't keep up with Lin Shuyu's train of thought. Forget it, explaining to you idiots is also difficult. Lin Shuyu gave up and waved his hands, moving his body slowly while walking forward. If you don't understand, then just keep your eyes open and watch how I cleared the level. Lin Shuyu shook his hair, accelerated his feet, and rushed towards the two mechanism puppets in front of him confidently. Lin Sheyu's figure was as fast as an arrow, and in the blink of an eye he arrived at the two organ puppets. The eyes of the two silent mechanism puppets instantly glowed red. Punch at the same time. Boom! A figure flew back suddenly, and slammed heavily on the innermost wall with a bang. Lin Sheyu's body slowly slid off the wall like a poster, his expression twitched, and he slowly raised a hand as if trying to grab something. Fuck, this is not a first-level organ puppet, it's a fucking second level. After saying this, Lin Sheyu tilted his head and passed out directly. The teenagers in the arena watched what happened in the blink of an eye, their mouths opened little by little, and their expressions were so shocked that they couldn't utter a word. Ask for monthly tickets and comments on flowers, thank you. 053 Where is the second level? 3. The internal structure is far more complicated than I imagined. Liu Sheng's mental power penetrated into the body of the mechanism puppet, studied it carefully for a while, and then quickly lost interest. He suddenly let go of the fists of the two mechanism puppets that were pinched by him. The two mechanism arms, which had been in a state of conflict between parts and programs, finally reached their limits under this huge drain. With a crash, it was directly ripped off from the shoulder. The strength is almost equivalent to that of a second-level warrior. Liu Sheng can know what happened behind him without turning his head, so he is naturally aware of Lin Sheyu's tragic situation. I don't know where this guy's brain is wrong, but he dared to confront the two puppets of the second-level agency head-on like him. Where did he have the confidence? Try defense again. The organ puppet that was missing one arm didn't intend to stop its operation at all, it continued to raise the remaining arm, and hit Liu Sheng hard. But this speed of punching was too slow in Liu Sheng's eyes. With just a simple tilt of his head, Liu Sheng easily dodged the passing arms of the two mechanism puppets. Then, punch! Boom! This punch hit a mechanism puppet hard on the chest. The thick alloy chest made a tooth-piercing sound of steel squeezing, and then quickly sank. Boom! A large group of ignition lights burst out. A big hole like a burst appeared on the back of this mechanism puppet, and a white and powerful fist penetrated it. Liu Sheng pulled his fist out of the mechanism puppet's body at will, and blocked another attack of another mechanism puppet along the way. Nearly 2 meters tall, the red light in the eyes of the mechanism puppet flickered for a while, then gradually extinguished, and then staggered to the ground, making a dull sound. Boom! The hearts of the youths in Qingyuan City at the starting point of the passage also trembled violently. Horrible! This is the only thought in their minds about Liu Sheng right now. Seeing Liu Sheng take down the two mechanism puppets with ease, these teenagers inexplicably recalled what Liu Sheng just said in their minds. Beasts always travel alone, but cattle and sheep come in groups. Compared with the current Liu Sheng, the group of them trembling in front of the government puppets really looked like a group of frightened cattle and sheep. In their eyes, Liu Sheng's tall and thin back, which did not appear to be generous, quickly became tall and majestic. Obviously, the other party is just a teenager who is about their age. Boom! Boom! Loud noises echoed in the narrow passage, and the eyelids of the teenagers jumped wildly following the sound. Monster! The teenagers couldn't find a more suitable word to describe the figure that was fading away in the distance. Looking at the mechanism puppets that fell to the ground like scrap iron, the hearts of the teenagers wailed. This is a genuine secondary organ puppet. Level 2. Not level 1. It's not even a half-finished product. Just look at Lin Sheyu who was half dead on the ground. These existences that are like iron walls are as fragile in Liu Sheng's hands as scarecrows planted in the wheat field. At this moment, these teenagers in Qingyuan City, who have been praised by countless people as geniuses, monsters, and other people's children since childhood, finally feel. In this world, what kind of existence are real geniuses and monsters? Why let them mortals and such monsters be in the same training camp? Mom, I want to go home. Lu Sheng knocked down every mechanism puppets that stood in front of him one by one. With the spiritual power to detect the internal structure of the puppets, he can easily find out where the core of each puppets is. Weak point attack. It's easy. Almost no second blow is needed to knock down every mechanism puppet. Just when Lu Sheng had just squeezed the head of a mechanical puppet, his expression suddenly changed. He clearly saw that, right in front of the passage, there was a figure approaching him quickly. Lu Sheng's eyes shone slightly, and there was a look of anticipation on his face. Has the second level finally opened? It must have made me wait too long. At the same time, a handsome young man with a mole hidden in his left eyebrow was rushing quickly along the passage. He held something that looked like a remote control tightly in his hand. There are more than a dozen buttons densely embedded on the remote control, and each button corresponds to a green light. At this moment, a dozen green lights on the remote control in the young man's hand were rapidly turning red one by one. In just a few minutes, more than 80% of the green lights turned red. Looking at the dazzling red lights, the anxiety on the young man's face almost overflowed. Fuck. What's going on? Why did all the puppets of the organs malfunction all of a sudden? Isn't it a new product that just arrived? The young man was distraught. As the person in charge of this channel, he is not only responsible for the safety of the teenagers who have broken through the level, but also responsible for the wear and tear of the mechanism puppets in the channel. Generally speaking, as long as the mechanism puppets are not completely damaged, everything is okay. Can a group of brats who have just reached the standard of a first-level official martial artist damage a second-level organ puppet? Is it possible? Let them use up their teeth one by one, and it is estimated that at most the paint on the shell of the mechanism puppet will be broken. So the young man was very relieved and hid aside for a while and squinted for a while, preparing to come out to save the scene when the time is almost up. After all, the real purpose of this assessment is to severely dampen the arrogance of these so-called top geniuses in Dongning province, so that they can have a long memory and suffer more. But he never expected that just after he dozed off, the remote control in his hand would start flickering frantically. More than a dozen organ puppets were damaged due to failure. Think about the cost of a mechanism puppet. Nima, even if you sell him, you can't afford it. Thinking of this, the young man's feet speeded up a bit. Finally, the young man reached the front of the passage. From a distance, he saw a thin and handsome young man standing among a pile of scrap metal, slowly pulling his arm out of the chest of a mechanism puppet. The boy noticed his arrival, and there was no surprise on his face, but a little excited. Those eyes, which were as clear as crystal, gradually burst into light, and there was a fighting spirit burning in them. You finally came. The young man's expression was a little confused. His eyes fell on those appalling puppets, and he lost the ability to think in a daze. His heart was bleeding. Suddenly, a gust of wind rang in my ears. The young man stood upright all over in an instant, and subconsciously flew back. Then, a young figure leaped high in front of him. This figure blocked the light on the top floor of the passage, and the shadow cast fell on his face, only a pair of fiery and expectant eyes could be seen. Come on, the gatekeeper of the second level, I hope you won't let me down. Youth? When did I become the gatekeeper of the second level? Besides, where the hell is the second level? Please everything. 054 Dong Qingxiu, 4. A huge control room. Dong Qingxiu sat down at the table with her head down, flipping through the materials. A well-tailored dark blue school officer's uniform showed her figure perfectly, and the slender legs slightly crossed under the table, even under the wrapping of trousers, were still graceful like a picture scroll. Directly opposite Dong Qingxiu, in front of a console composed of a huge display screen and a large number of buttons, a slender and handsome young man held a cup of coffee in his hand, and while admiring the scene in front of him, he sighed sincerely, "What a pleasant and blissful day." Dong Qingxiu raised her head and looked at the guy who had only 1 star less than her on the epaulets, and the pair of slender Luye eyebrows frowned beautifully on his pretty face. If you really feel empty, please come and help me review the materials. Major Qin Shaojun. The young man took a sip of coffee, said haha and said with evasive eyes, I'm busy, Lieutenant Colonel Kingxiu. Besides, you are the main person in charge of the talent training camp this time, and I'm just a temporary assistant. Dong Kingxiu stared at the young man for a while, and finally had no choice but to give up. The other party was notoriously lazy, and this time it was indeed she who forced the other party to come to help. Dong Kingxiu shook her head, and continued to read through the thick documents under her hands. The young man drank a few sips of coffee, maybe he felt a little bored, so he walked around slowly. His eyes randomly glanced at the materials scattered on the table, and he asked, How is it? How is the quality of this talent training camp? Not so good. Dong Kingxiu shook her head, and said lightly, There are only 8 seedlings who can be regarded as meeting our standards, and they are all official warriors who have awakened their talents. 5 of them are average, and the awakened ones are the most common strength talents. The other 3. Dong Kingxiu took out 3 documents from a pile and threw them in front of the young man. 1 speed type, 1 defensive type. The qi and blood values of both of them have reached the standard of a second-level warrior. This is the best. Dong Kingxiu picked out another one from the 3-point file, pointed to a girl with firm eyes on the profile photo and said, Charlene, 17 years and 8 months old, has awakened her spiritual talent for less than 2 years, and she is close to the standard of a first-level psychiatrist. Martial arts talent is also excellent, and he is about to enter the second level. Isn't this great? The young man exclaimed with an exaggerated expression, Absolute genius, just like you back then. This look is also very similar to yours, Kingxiu. I think this little girl is destined to be with you. Stop it. Dong Kingxiu shook her head, but her eyes still touched a little, and she said, This girl is really good, and I have listed her as the key training object for this training camp. The others are good too. The young man tried to find a piece of information that made him pleasing to the eye from the pile of documents on the table. After consecutively scratching away the other 2 of the 3 materials Dong Kingxiu picked out, his eyes fell on the first file below. This. The young man picked up a piece of information and shook it in front of Dong Kingxiu, and said with a smile, He is handsome enough, like me. And he is excellent in all aspects, his blood value has reached the standard of a second-level warrior, and his combat power. Fug. Perfect boxing, fighting power comparable to a third-level warrior. You also want to get rid of this kind of good seed? Kingxiu, when did your vision become so high? Dong Kingxiu shook her head and said, I know which one you are talking about. This Lu Sheng was originally selected by me as the first step seed, even comparable to Charlene. But then I took him out again, and you should know why, Shaojun. Dong Kingxiu looked into the young man's eyes. The exaggerated surprised expression on the young man's face subsided little by little, and finally returned to calm. I know, because of talent. Yes, it's because of talent. Dong Kingxiu nodded and said, the upper limit of power talents is really too low. Although it is indeed terrifying in the early stage of martial arts, with the blessing of divine power, warriors with first and second level awakened strength talents can fight tens of thousands or even tens of thousands of combat power. But once in the later stage, the slight strength bonus brought by their talents has no advantage at all under the huge blood value of 6th level and 7th level warriors. In the end, it can only be lost in the crowd. The young man remained silent. As Dong Kingxiu said, for strength-type talent warriors, in the later stage of martial arts, the advantages that talent can bring to them will become very small, until they are negligible. A 6th-level martial artist has more than 1,000 qi and blood, and a 7th-level master has more than 10,000 qi and blood. Just think about it, with the huge energy and blood surging like a river and the combat power of a 1,000,000-level master, how much bonus can that little power bring to strength? The master just comprehends some skills casually, and there is more than that. On the other hand, look at the few that were singled out by Dong Qingxiu. Charlene has nothing to say, a psychiatrist, there are baby bumps everywhere. The other two are a speed-type talent warrior and a defense-type talent warrior. These two talents are both talents that are still very useful in the late stage of martial arts. In the late stage of the speed-type talent, the body skills can easily break the speed of sound, and the late stage of the defensive type talent is directly equivalent to practicing one more master of horizontal martial arts than others. So don't look at the talents and strengths displayed by these two people are not as good as that student named Liu Sheng. But Qin Shaojun is almost certain that after 10 or 20 years, the achievements of these two people in martial arts will far surpass the latter. This is the iron law summed up by countless experience and examples for more than 300 years of martial arts. Without exception. 055 When did you put the 4th level fighters in? 5. Do you remember our class? That person, Xiang Peng. Dong Qingxiu asked. Qin Shaojun nodded, I know, there were many talented people in that class. In the talent training camp that Dong Qingxiu was referring to, there were more than 20 talented warriors. And the Xiang Peng she was talking about was the Wang of that class. When he entered the camp, his qi and blood value was close to that of a 3rd-level warrior, and his strength was even more amazing. Almost everyone's nightmare. Looking back now, Qin Shaojun felt that the part that was beaten by the opponent at the beginning seemed to be in pain. One can imagine how terrifying that guy was at that time. Right now he... Dong Qingxiu paused for a moment, and said in a more euphemistic way, it's far less dazzling than before. Qin Shaojun nodded silently. In fact, Dong Qingxiu didn't know, he had secretly gone to that person once in private. When I went there, I gritted my teeth and wanted to avenge the past. After seeing it, he was depressed and couldn't arouse any interest at all. People are not at the same level at all, and they are talking about revenge or not. This Liu Sheng still has talent, but it's a pity. Dong Qingxiu picked up the document belonging to Liu Sheng, scanned it from top to bottom, and was sincerely moved. This time it was Qin Shaojun's turn to comfort Dong Qingxiu. There's nothing to be sorry about. Those who are truly pitiful are these people. Qin Shaojun patted the thick stack of remaining student materials at the bottom, and said quite speechlessly, with 1 or 2 points of vitality, you are tricked into coming in with the name of a genius, but in fact, it's all here to make up for it. Not only will I not get any benefits, but I may also be severely hit by these monsters, and I will leave deep and indelible trauma physically and psychologically from then on. Dong Qingxiu rolled his eyes at him angrily, and said, say nonsense, how can it be so exaggerated? Even if it is a foil, the training camp is of great help to them. How can there be such good cultivation conditions in other places? Qin Shaojun shrugged, non-committal. While the two were chatting, some changes suddenly occurred on the giant composite instrument directly opposite them. Qin Shaojun walked over quickly. Finally the show. He whistled cheerfully. On the console in front of him, several indicator lights that were originally green suddenly turned red, and a slight reminder sounded. Channel number 3, 2 organ puppets have been damaged by more than 10%. Number 8 also has. Qin Shaojun held the coffee in one hand, and quickly manipulated the table with the other. Soon, 2 separate monitoring screens were called up on the huge display screen. Dong Qingxiu also came over to watch. I saw that in one picture, a strong and burly boy was presented. The skin on the boy's face and body showed a faint and strange grayish white. The attack of the 2nd-level mechanism puppet fell on him, making a dull sound like a hammer hitting the ground, leaving only a faint white mark. Taking advantage of this point, the young man ran amok in the passage like a bull. All the puppets were knocked tottering by him, some were even hit head-on, and their shoulders and chest were directly sunken. This is the little guy who awakened the defensive talent? Stone skin physique? I remember that we also had one in that class. Qin Shaojun said in a little surprise. Dong Qingxiu nodded and said, Qi Meng, he is serving in the southern military region now, with the rank of captain. Oh yes, his skin has now grown into a steel body. Qin Shaojun made a tisk-tisk sound. On the other surveillance screen, it was a thin boy. The boy's speed was so fast that even the monitoring screen could barely catch his figure. All I could see were puppets on the screen that were constantly being attacked and looked extremely clumsy. Speed type, always very naughty. Qin Shaojun sighed. At this moment, there was a sudden beep on the desktop, and several indicator lights turned from green to red in succession. The loss is 15%, the loss is 23%, the loss is 30%. Qin Shaojun looked at this series of data, and his whole body seemed to become excited, his eyes became brighter and brighter, and he quickly pressed one hand on the operating table. Not long after, the third monitoring screen appeared on the big screen. The content presented in this picture is far beyond the imagination of ordinary people. A thin girl walked in the dark airtight passage with an expressionless face. She hardly has to do anything. Wherever they pass, the mechanism puppets blocking the way in front of them will be bounced away by an invisible force, deeply embedded in the steel wall next to them, and actively make way for the girl. It's just perverted. Qin Shaojun looked at this scene that was like the plot of a sci-fi movie, choked out a few words, and looked at Dong Qingxiu with undisguised envy in his eyes. You psychiatrists are just like bugs. Why don't you let ordinary people like us live? Dong Qingxiu stared at the girl in the picture intently, with a faint smile on the corner of her mouth, and said, although a spiritual teacher is powerful, the difficulty of cultivation is too high, and the progress is slow after the third level. Moreover, a spiritual teacher with too weak talent is not as good as a warrior, so it is better to specialize in martial arts. However, it is true that it is easier for a spiritual master to break through to the master level. Qin Shaojun listened to Dong Qingxiu's speech sourly, and picked up the coffee in his hand and wanted to put it to his mouth. At this moment, a series of ear-piercing reminders sounded suddenly, which seemed so ear-piercing in the empty command room. What's wrong? Both of them were stunned, and Qin Shaojun quickly operated on the desktop. Aisle 12. When the information belonging to Channel 12 was called out, Qin Shaojun suddenly let out a strange cry as if he had seen a ghost, and he couldn't even hold the coffee in his hand firmly, and spilled it all over the floor. 80% damage, 87% damage, damage. Damn, there are a total of 20 organ puppets, more than 15 of them have been damaged by more than 80%, and they are almost scrapped. Dong Qingxiu, when did you let the 4th level fighters in? 056 That person is so scary. 1. Turn out the monitor. Dong Qingxiu hurriedly urged, her eyes were fixed on the big screen. Qin Shaojun didn't care about spilling his hands full of coffee, he wiped his clothes carelessly, and quickly switched out the monitor. When the monitoring screen of Channel 12 was completely presented in front of the two of them, even if they were people who had seen such a storm, their pupils could not help shrinking slightly, and their expressions appeared absent-minded for a moment. In the screen of Passage 12, only a group of pale-faced teenagers shivering in a corner can be seen. One of them was still unconscious on the ground. These people were all looking in the same direction, with terrified expressions, like ordinary people who saw monsters in movies. Following their gazes, what Dong Qingxiu and Qin Shaojun saw was a mess. There are smashed mechanism puppets everywhere, the stumped limbs and broken arms of mechanism puppets, parts that fell from the body, and so on. The camera zoomed in, and Dong Qingxiu and the two saw the shocking wounds on the puppets, as well as the wall next to them. The passage walls made of pure steel, each with deeply sunken potholes. The entire passage seemed to have been ravaged by some terrifying monster. Damn it! Dong Qingxiu's expression became a little ugly. The cost of the second-level mechanism puppets is not low, so much damage at the same time, and it is not ordinary damage, it is basically equivalent to scrapping. This is undoubtedly a huge loss of funds. You must know that these puppets of the secondary organization were purchased by the base just now. Wipe. Qin Shaojun couldn't help but said, if you can beat the puppets of the second-level organs like this, the third-level fighters can't do it, right? You have to go up to the fourth-level combat ability. Are there such monsters in this group of students? Qin Shaojun turned his head to look at Dong Qingxiu. Dong Qingxiu lowered her head and flipped through the documents. Channel number 12 is arranged for the assessment of Qingyuan City students. There are no outstanding figures in Qingyuan City this year. Could someone get in there? Dong Qingxiu frowned, wanted to grab the phone on the table to investigate and inquire, but quickly put it down. Forget it, just go over and have a look. Dong Qingxiu was a little annoyed. Are all the supervisors in passageway 12 dead? So many puppets in agencies have been destroyed, so I don't know how to stop them. In the middle of speaking, he suddenly stopped. Dong Qingxiu and Qin Shaojun looked at each other, and they thought of a possibility almost at the same time. Perhaps, it's not that the person in charge of supervising Channel 12 didn't come out to stop it, but came out without the ability to stop it at all. Thinking of those shocking pictures I saw before. Dong Qingxiu's heart skipped a beat. Go. Go to passage 12. The two rushed out of the command room in a hurry. Boom. A mechanism puppet was thrown out by an invisible force and fell to the ground. There was red light in the eyes of the organ puppet, and he stood up unsteadily, with a depression of several centimeters in his chest. Charlene looked at this mechanism puppet vigilantly, until she was sure that the opponent, like the previous mechanism puppet, would no longer attack after being knocked down once, and then she was slightly relieved. This is the last organ puppet. This also means that I have passed the camp entry assessment this time. Charlene quickly walked towards the exit. Near the exit, she stopped and glanced thoughtfully in a certain direction behind her. Her spiritual force told her that there was a person hiding there. A person who brings her a strong sense of danger must be at least level 3 or above. Didn't come out to stop me, the proof is not in the assessment, it should be the supervisor in charge of the assessment or something. Charlene guessed in her heart. Charlene reached out to open the exit door, and the light came in from the outside. Only then did her heart relax completely. Charlene walked out of the small door. She suddenly found that there were many soldiers in blue uniforms gathered outside the door. But these people were obviously not coming for her. Each of them had a nervous and adversary look on their faces, and they were staring at one direction next to them. Charlene looked in that direction curiously. She saw another small door. Just when Charlene was wondering. Crunch! The small door was pushed open from the inside. The moment the small door was opened, Charlene, who had a keen sense, immediately noticed that the bodies of the people gathered in front of the small door obviously had a tense movement. It seems to be afraid, nervous about something. Charlene, driven by curiosity, unleashed her mental power and cautiously probed into the door. Suddenly, Charlene's body stiffened. She sees a person through spiritual power. One person, dragging another person. That person obviously also sensed Charlene's presence. In the darkness, the man slowly leaned out half of his body, revealing a fair and handsome young face with traces of bright red blood remaining on it. It was a boy about her age. Charlene looked into the boy's eyes blankly. From those crystal-clear eyes, she felt a trace of scorching temperature and deeper coldness that had not yet faded away. Ugh! In an instant, Charlene's mental power shrank back like frightened tentacles, wrapping her tightly. This is an almost instinctive reaction, as if the hand will be retracted immediately after being burned by fire, and the animal will subconsciously run away when it senses danger. Boom! Charlene quickly retracted into the small door she just walked out of, and closed the exit door heavily. She leaned against the door tightly, her full chest heaving up and down violently, and her heart was beating fast. At this moment, Charlene only had one thought crazily echoing in her mind. That person just now is really scary. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. In fact, I don't really want to explain this kind of setting problem, because I have tried my best to write clearly in the article, and anyone who can figure it out can figure it out. But since it is a free period, let me say a few more words. The difference between strength, speed, and defense is actually easy to understand. The fastest man in the world is almost 1.5 times faster than a normal adult male, while the strongest man in the world is more than 5 times stronger than a normal adult male. What does this mean? This shows that the difficulty of training strength is much lower than the difficulty of training speed and defense. And in this book, the addition of Qi and blood to warriors is more about strength. The combat power index test in the book also measures the instant burst of fist power. It's not that the strength talent can't grow, but that after the strength talent grows, it is covered by the effect of the increase in blood value, so the addition to the warrior's overall strength in the later stage is far less obvious than the defense and speed. Even in many games, if you keep only building strength, you must be a piece of garbage in the late game. On the contrary, the agility of the main pile or the defense of blood volume can mix well in the later stage. At least I think so, lol. That's about it. If you really can't accept it, there's nothing you can do. 057 He is so powerful, I can end number 039, hold back, 2. Do you know what's going on inside? When Dong Qingxiu and Qin Shaojun arrived at the gate of passage number 12, it was already surrounded by guards from the training camp. A middle-aged man in a military uniform with a square face quickly walked up to Dong Qingxiu and reported in a low voice, "Several surveillance cameras near the door have been damaged, and it is unclear what happened inside. Where are the supervisors inside? I lost contact 3 minutes ago, and I am preparing to report this situation." Dong Qingxiu couldn't see any joy or anger on her face. She said lightly, "Those who enter passageway number 12, give me a copy of all student materials. Immediately." "Yes." Soon, the middle-aged man with a square face brought a stack of documents to Dong Qingxiu. But the strange thing is that Dong Qingxiu shook her head at this time. "Forget it, no need." Qiaozi's face froze for a moment, not understanding why. At this time, there was a dull loud noise from the small door at the exit of passage 12 not far away. Boom! This loud noise seemed to hit the hearts of everyone present. Qiaozilian and his subordinates suddenly became tense. The soldiers were immediately ready to fight at any time. Just waiting for their chief to give an order, they immediately rushed to subdue the person who walked out of the door. Or, subdued. Compared with the nervousness and seriousness shown by her subordinates, Dong Qingxiu's expression at this moment seemed a little strange. Her eyes narrowed slightly, she fixedly looked at the position of the small door, her eyes shone with a strange brilliance, as if she was trying to see the situation inside through the small door. Just when everyone is waiting in full swing. Crunch! A small door opened. It's the passage next to it. A girl with an indifferent expression came out from the door. Seeing such a big battle outside the door, although it was not aimed at herself, the girl was obviously stunned for a moment. The soldiers glanced at the girl and immediately looked away, continuing to focus on the small door in front of them. Finally, the small door belonging to passage 12 was slowly pushed open from the inside. Sunlight casts shadows. In the darkness, a figure slowly poked out half of its body. Everyone's nerves began to tense. But wait for them to see the appearance of that figure clearly. Immediately, he quickly relaxed again. It turned out to be a boy who walked out of the door. Just a half-year-old kid. With a handsome appearance and clear eyebrows, he is a very clean-looking young man. Fortunately, they were so nervous just now, and some of them even had self-deprecating smiles on their faces when they thought of how they looked like they were facing an enemy just now. But the next moment, the smiles on these people's faces froze quickly. They seemed to have seen some extremely terrifying scene, their eyes were wide open, and expressions of extreme shock and fear were revealed bit by bit in their pupils. The teenager came out of the darkness completely. He raised a hand to cover his forehead, as if to block the sun. The other hand seemed to be dragging something heavy. Rustle. A body covered in dust and blood was dragged out of the tunnel by the young man with one hand, and it was randomly thrown on the sunny ground. Boom! The body fell to the ground, revealing the face of a young man who had fallen into a coma. A soldier recognized this face and stammered, "Yes, it's the lost Lieutenant Wang. This is an officer at the base, known to many people. The third-level martial artist is quite powerful, and he is responsible for supervising Channel 12 this time." Now, this young martial artist was dragged and thrown to the ground like a dead dog. Everyone was stunned. He stared blankly at the handsome young man standing in the sun with a clean and crystal-clear appearance. For a moment, there seemed to be a trance in front of his eyes. Boom! There was a loud slam of the door. The small door of the side passage was slammed shut, and the girl who was standing there just now was nowhere to be seen. Everyone was stunned, and their minds hadn't turned around yet. Only Dong Qingxiu's face remained the same as before. But Dong Qingxiu had to admit it. Even though she had already used her mental power to detect the scene in the tunnel, when she witnessed this scene with her own eyes, there was still a big shock in her heart. Even the expression on Qin Shaojun's face froze. As if aware of the strangeness of the crowd, the young man was silent for a while, trying to explain. "He's so powerful, I can't hold back." Quiet. The field fell into an eerie silence. There was the sound of swallowing saliva. A moment later, Dong Qingxiu's voice sounded in the field. "Student Liu Sheng from Beihe City, congratulations on passing the camp entrance examination." Liu Sheng was led by a soldier to rest in the camp. Liu Sheng's expression was calm, but some emotion slowly surged in his heart. He finally realized that he seemed to have misunderstood the content of this assessment. The third-level martial artist who suddenly rushed out from behind did not seem to be part of the content of this assessment. That is, I hit the wrong person. Liu Sheng felt helpless. It's normal for someone to let the other party hide in the passage furtively, and then rush out in a hurry. But fortunately, although it was said that he hit the wrong person, the examiner was beaten up by accident. But at least he has successfully passed the assessment. Originally, Liu Sheng came to this talent training camp with a more casual attitude, but now, Liu Sheng has begun to become interested. Just now, he actually sensed it. In this training camp, there are actually two spiritual masters who have the same spiritual means as himself. 058 Shadow of the Demon King, 3. One is a girl about his age, who should also be a student of this training camp. The other is the supreme commander of this training camp. Dong Qingxiu, Lieutenant Colonel of the Eastern Military Region. This is the information that Liu Sheng just learned. When Liu Sheng walked out of the number 12 corridor, the two of them released their mental power to investigate him. One of the female students' mental strength is very weak, probably not even 1/10 of Liu Sheng's. Dong Qingxiu's mental power was much stronger, at least 5 times that of Liu Sheng's. Liu Sheng was very careful. When he sensed that there was spiritual power probing him, he immediately retracted the spiritual power he released, and no one should have noticed. It's not that it's good or bad to be found, but an instinctive reaction. There are even psychiatrists. It seems that this training camp is not all ordinary people. Liu Sheng thought to himself. Yes, for example, Lin Sheyu and his gang in Qingyuan City have been classified as ordinary people by Liu Sheng. I don't know how these self-proclaimed geniuses will feel if they know that they have been classified as ordinary people by Liu Sheng. Soldiers in military uniform led Liu Sheng to a dormitory, briefly explained to him, then turned and left. During the whole process, the soldier looked at Liu Sheng strangely. 10 minutes ago, it was this harmless high school student in front of him who beat his superior officer like a dead dog and dragged him out of the passage. Liu Sheng walked into the dormitory. The accommodation conditions in the training camp were better than expected. All furniture and appliances are available, as well as a separate bathroom and toilet. There is even a small blood tester in the corner of the room, allowing students to keep track of their qi and blood levels. The point is, this is a single dormitory. In other words, Liu Sheng didn't have to worry about being discovered or influenced by others while practicing stellar body refining technique in the dormitory. It's been a long time since I tested the blood value, let's test it first. Since the last official martial artist assessment, Liu Sheng has never tested his blood value again. It's been almost 2 weeks, and he is also very curious about his current blood value. Take blood, test. Accompanied by a pleasant diss sound, a numerical value appeared in front of Liu Sheng. 53.692. Compared with the last time, it has increased by 38 points. Several qi and blood breakthroughs, coupled with continuous consumption of Lingji's Wangxiu decoction and Yang Sui pill, it is normal to have this qi and blood growth rate. At this speed, it is estimated that in another month, I will be able to break through the 3rd level and officially enter the stage of strengthening my muscles and bones. Liu Sheng showed some satisfaction on his face. The process of increasing his qi and blood value step by step, and his strength becoming stronger step by step made him feel very fulfilled and satisfied. Command room of the training camp center. On the ground in the center of the room, there are dilapidated mechanism puppets. These organ puppets are all in dilapidated condition. They are either missing arms or legs or have lost their heads. Many parts of their bodies show signs of being severely squeezed and twisted. It's like a rag doll that has been ravaged by a titan. Gives a shocking sense of impact. Dong Qingxiu and Qin Shaojun were standing in the room, but they were not paying attention to these mechanism puppets at this time, but were staring at the big screen in front of them intently. On the big screen, the closed-circuit surveillance video in Channel 12 is being played. From the time when Liu Sheng and the youths from Qingyuan City entered the passage together, to the time when they finally walked out of the passage. When the entire video was played, Dong Qingxiu and Qin Shaojun only had 2 capital letters on their faces: shock. Incomparably shocked. The puppet of the 2nd level mechanism is like a toy in his hands. The lieutenant who has the strength of a 3rd level warrior has never lasted more than a minute under his hands. Qin Shaojun looked at Dong Qingxiu in shock and said, "This kid is a monster in actual combat. The combat power is so strong that it is beyond the charts, not only 15,000, but even 100,000, which is comparable to level 4 Musha. Didn't the data show that this kid's blood value is only 15? You ask me how I know. Does he look like he has 15 vitality now?" Dong Qingxiu's expression was equally complicated. Or, he deliberately concealed part of his strength in the martial artist assessment 2 weeks ago. Or, Dong Qingxiu paused and thought about it. In 2 weeks, the qi and blood value climbed from 15 to a height that was almost comparable to that of a 4th level warrior. Such a terrifying growth rate can only represent. He is likely to become the 2nd Xiang Peng. Qin Shaojun was stunned for a moment, and couldn't help but recall the fear when he was dominated by a man when he participated in the training camp. That overwhelming superiority in strength brings tremendous pressure like suffocation to others. Qin Shaojun remembered that he had nightmares for several weeks after returning from the training camp. Terrible. Back then, Xiang Peng, in their training camp, was simply the overlord, the one everyone looked up to and tried to challenge. Now, Qin Shaojun faintly saw the shadow of the Demon King from the student named Liu Sheng on the screen. Oh no, Liu Sheng is even more perverted than the Devil King of their class back then. Even Xiang Peng at that time couldn't pinch the puppets of the 2nd level organ like pinching chicken cubs. Then how are you going to arrange this Liu Sheng now? Qin Shaojun couldn't help asking. Dong Qingxiu's eyes flickered, and she replied, "I haven't thought about it yet, but the previous judgment on Liu Sheng must have been inaccurate, so let's train him as the number 1 seed like Charlene for the time being." After all, Dong Qingxiu looked at the slender and tall figure of the young man on the screen, took a deep breath, and said slowly, leaving aside the talent and ability, what he has shown so far is already amazing enough. Qin Shaojun understood what Dong Qingxiu meant. Judging from Liu Sheng's previous information, 17 years old, a second-level warrior, a talented warrior with strength. This may be a terrifying statistic in the eyes of ordinary people, but to Qin Shaojun and Dong Qingxiu who have seen too many geniuses, it is not outstanding. Even in the future, there is a great possibility that everyone will disappear. Xiang Peng is the best example. But if you add prefixes such as perfect realm boxing, combat power comparable to a 4th-level warrior and easily crushing an official 3rd-level warrior in front of this resume, then, it becomes different. Combat power and combat capability are two completely different concepts. Just because you can hit tens of thousands of combat effectiveness index during the test doesn't mean you can display this combat effectiveness in battle. And Liu Sheng did it. Still far beyond. This is scary. To use Qin Shaojun's words to describe it, that is practical monsters. Fighting genius. Naturally born, Budo seedling. Even if the current Liu Sheng is not a talented warrior, he does not have any natural abilities. This is enough to greatly increase his rating in Dong Qingxiu's mind. 059 Goodbye Purple Headband, 4. It's time for dinner. Liu Sheng opened his eyes. He was woken up by the soldiers in the training camp who had just gnawed off a few hard bones in his dream, and informed him that he could go to the cafeteria to eat. Liu Sheng glanced at the time, it was already evening, and he was indeed hungry. Following the directions of the training camp map on the table in the room, Liu Sheng found the cafeteria of the base all the way. The cafeteria is very large, divided into 3 floors, and their students eat on the first floor. Walking into the cafeteria, all Liu Sheng saw were boys and girls the same age as him. Obviously, they are also the students who participated in the training camp this time. Liu Sheng even saw the group of people in Qingyuan City, including Lin Sheyu, with a bandage on his head, queuing up for dinner with the support of 2 people with a pale face. Many students in the cafeteria had obvious bandaging marks on their bodies, and they looked a little embarrassed. It seems that although there is an entry assessment, no matter whether you can pass the assessment or not, you are still eligible to stay. Liu Sheng thought to himself. Liu Sheng found a window where he could get lunch at random, and Liu Sheng lined up silently. The students in front of him did not know which city in Dongning province they were, and they were still discussing about the assessment in the morning. Those organ puppets are too fierce. I just got rubbed accidentally, and now my back still hurts. You think, after all, they are puppets of the 2nd-level organization, and the 3rd-level fighters may not be able to fight head-on. We are lucky that we were not beaten to death or maimed. How could it be possible for us to be beaten to death and maimed? There are examiners here. But one thing to say, this assessment is really abnormal. Don't tell me, I heard that someone beat up the examiners in this class, and they are still lying unconscious in the infirmary. Really? How can the examiner have to be a 3rd-level warrior, otherwise we can't protect us under the 2nd-level agency? Is there anyone who can beat the examiner? Listen to his nonsense. I also heard that all the organs and puppets in the assessment channel have been smashed to pieces. Some people saw the base soldiers loading those scrapped 2nd-level organs into the car. This is too exaggerated, it must be fake. Liu Sheng mixed in the team and kept silent. He has now deeply realized how much he played during the day. Finally it was Liu Sheng's turn. The food in the training camp was surprisingly good. There were more than 30 kinds of meat dishes, most of which were meat that Liu Sheng had never seen before, and there were unlimited refills, which was most suitable for a big eater like him. After casually ordering a meal for 5 people, Liu Sheng looked for a place to stay with the plate. Perhaps it was because the scale of the food in his hands was too exaggerated, which attracted the attention of many people, and many people cast sideways glances at him. The group of people in Qingyuan City also noticed his existence, and they all turned around and ran away as if they had seen a ghost. Some of them didn't even eat their meals, and ran directly to the entrance of the cafeteria. It could be seen that in the passage during the day, the psychological shadow Liu Sheng left on them was too great. Just when Liu Sheng was about to find a place to sit down, someone walked towards him quickly. Liu Sheng, right? She is a tall girl who is still very pretty. I'm also a student of Beihe City participating in the training camp this time. If you don't mind, sit down and eat together. The girl stretched out her hand to brush the hair on her temples, looking a little embarrassed. Liu Sheng was hesitating whether to accept this sudden invitation, but the girl quickly said, "Actually, we met, in the Beihe City Martial Arts Association, when we participated in the official martial artist assessment, do you remember?" Liu Sheng froze for a moment, then recalled the other party's identity. "You are the..." Liu Sheng thought about it for a while, and then affirmed, "Purple headband." The girl smiled, nodded, and said, "My name is Yang Yuan." When participating in the assessment at the Beihe Martial Arts Association, this girl, like Liu Sheng, was the youngest among all the assessors. But she didn't wear the purple headband today, but changed to a pink one. Speaking of which, we are actually quite destined. I know your sister, Liu Qinghe. Qinghe often mentions you in front of me. Yang Yuan blushed a little when she said this. She has always been regarded as a high cold goddess in school, but she never expected that there would be times when she would rely on her relationship to get close to a certain boy. Haha, really? Liu Sheng smiled, but did not expose Yang Yuan's lie. How could his sister Liu Qinghe often mention him in front of others? It's too late to think him ashamed. However, Liu Sheng remembered that Liu Qinghe did mention the existence of Yang Yuan. He met Liu Qinghe and her two girlfriends in the Martial Arts Association before, and the three little girls seemed to be there to accompany Yang Yuan. Since they were all acquaintances, Liu Sheng readily agreed, "Yes, where to sit?" Yang Yuan's eyes lit up, and she walked quickly to lead Liu Sheng very attentively. "Here, all of us from Beihe City are sitting together." Yang Yuan led Liu Sheng to sit down on a long table, and there were 7 or 8 boys and girls sitting on the long table, all of them looked at Liu Sheng with curious eyes. During the period before they came to the training camp, the biggest news in Beihe City was this young man of similar age in front of him. It is no exaggeration to say that Liu Sheng is the star figure among high school students in Beihe City. Liu Sheng smiled at the group, then buried himself in his meal. He is not good at communication, nor does he bother to communicate. Silently watching Liu Sheng eat for a while, Yang Yuan, who had been deliberating for a long time, finally broke through the embarrassment. "Liu Sheng, do you know anything about this talent training camp?" 060 Liu Sheng also disappears from the crowd. 5. Without. Liu Sheng picked up a piece of pink meat and stuffed it into his mouth without lifting his head. "I don't know what kind of meat this kind of meat is. The meat quality is far firmer than expected, and the taste is quite good." Yang Yuan's mind was not on the food at all. "I understand something, do you want to know?" Silence. Yang Yuan stared at Liu Sheng for a while, expecting some reaction from Liu Sheng, but Liu Sheng just buried her head in eating, which made her quite embarrassed. "I don't know if I should continue talking." Fortunately, Liu Sheng also quickly realized this, nodded symbolically, and said, "You say." As he said that, he picked up another rib of an unknown animal and took a hard bite. "Delicious." Yang Yuan breathed a sigh of relief, and quickly said, "This talent training camp is jointly organized by the Dongning Provincial Department of Education, the Martial Arts Association and the Eastern Military Region. Lieutenant Colonel Dong Qingxiu of the Eastern Military Region is the top person in charge of this training camp. It is said that Dong Qingxiu came from the master." Yang Yuan talked for a while, and found that Liu Sheng didn't seem to be interested in these things, so she quickly changed the direction and continued, "I asked the brothers and sisters who participated in the training camp in the past few sessions, and I learned from them that this training camp is actually a training camp. The hardest part is not how to get in, but how to stay. What's the meaning? Lu Sheng finally became interested, and the speed of eating slowed down a little. Seeing that Lu Sheng was attracted by her own topic, Yang Yuan couldn't help straightening her chest, and continued, "It means that there are conditions for those of us who want to stay in this training camp." "What conditions?" Lu Sheng asked. Yang Yuan replied, "It's like a kind of points. According to the seniors and sisters of the previous class, every day in the training camp needs to consume a certain amount of points, such as accommodation, food, and training." The teachers in the camp asked questions and so on. "Is there a condition for eating?" Lu Sheng frowned. "Yes." Yang Yuan replied bitterly, "Do you think we are eating ordinary food now? Many of these meats are stripped from the bodies of strange beasts, and through special treatment, they are cooked into food that is helpful for our warriors to practice. Long-term use is very good for warriors to increase their qi and blood value, and it can also enhance their physique in all aspects without developing resistance to tonics. However, the price is also ridiculously expensive. Just like the second-grade black-toothed sword pork you are eating now, outside, a casual serving will cost tens of thousands of dragon coins. And it still hasn't been processed. If it is properly cooked, the price can reach more than 50,000. If it's not in the training camp, how can the average family afford to eat every day, unless your dad is the richest man in Beihe City? Not to mention that a lot of meat can't be bought outside, and it's all specially supplied by the military region." "I see." Lu Sheng looked at the piece of meat in his hand, quite surprised. "I didn't expect such a piece of meat to be so expensive, which means that he had eaten at least 100 and 200,000 for the meal just now." After receiving a 1 million bonus from the Beihe Martial Arts Association, he still felt that he was quite rich. Only now did I know that he didn't even have enough food and clothing. In addition, there are many special training rooms in the training camp, which are very helpful for martial arts practice, but they are also difficult to use outside, or you need to pay a lot of money to use them." Yang Yuan said with a worried expression. "It can be said that every extra day you stay in this training camp, the more benefits you get. The remaining condition is points. Earn points, it's hard. How difficult is it?" Lu Sheng felt a little full. These exotic meats were indeed full of energy, and 1 gram was worth several caddies of ordinary beef and mutton. But thinking of the frightening price of these meats, he insisted on continuing to eat. "Very difficult." Yang Yuan smiled bitterly and said, "Let's put it this way, so far, there are only 3 people who have points in the entire training camp. The others are still 0 for the time being. In other words, if we don't earn a certain amount of points as soon as possible, we will be punished tomorrow. Get out." "Which 3? How did they get their points?" Lu Sheng couldn't help being curious. Yang Yuan explained, "It's today's camp entry assessment, and those who pass the assessment will be rewarded with points. And I heard that only 3 people passed the assessment. One is Cao Yang from Yanglan City, a second-level warrior, possessing the talent of stone skin, which can greatly enhance his defense power, and passed the assessment. One is Meng Jinhe from Donggang City, who is also a second-level martial artist, a speed-type talented martial artist, and has also passed the assessment. There's one more, well, she is." Yang Yuan suddenly looked in one direction. Lu Sheng followed Yang Yuan's gaze and saw a girl with a cool demeanor walking in the cafeteria with a rice bowl. It turned out to be her. Lu Sheng was a little surprised. He remembers this girl. When he came out of the passage, it was this girl who used her mental power to detect him, and then she was frightened by him, and hid in the passage again in fear. As if sensing Lu Sheng's gaze, the girl looked at him. The moment she saw Lu Sheng, the girl froze for a moment. His face suddenly turned pale, and then he turned around and left without hesitation, walking fast. "You know her? Indeed, it's normal for you to know her. Many people know her." Charlene from Baoding City, although she is not a second-level warrior, she is indeed rarer than a talented warrior. She should be the one with the best talent and strength in this training camp. I heard that the senior management of the training camp has already. I'm following her. As far as I know, there are only 3 people who have passed the assessment, and this assessment is really too difficult, even more exaggerated than the previous one. Didn't you see that Charlene who passed the assessment has such an ugly face, and she left in such a hurry? She must have been punished by the assessment. Lu Sheng. Yang Yuan's expression was full of emotion. Before entering the training camp, she originally thought that her martial arts talent was good and she could be regarded as a genius. But after entering, I realized what a real genius, monster, and evildoer is. Originally, she passed the first-level warrior assessment some time ago, and she was still a little complacent. But after entering the training camp, I realized that there are first-level warriors around her age everywhere. Even a second-level warrior who has awakened his talent. Above the talented warriors, there are even rarer and more powerful spiritual masters. A level is higher than a level, even Lu Sheng. Yang Yuan glanced at the talented young man who once shocked the entire Beihe city in front of him, and couldn't help thinking secretly. Even Lu Sheng is almost lost in the crowd here. It will be on the shelves soon, just ask for some data, everyone is free. 061 The rumored 4th person. 6. Ordinary talents are nothing, but geniuses who have awakened their talents are considered geniuses. And even if they were talented warriors, most of them failed the assessment. There were only 3 in total. It is said that there is a 4th one, but I guess it is probably fake. Yang Yuan chattered endlessly. Lu Sheng replied casually, why do you say the 4th one is fake? Yang Yuan smiled and said, because the 4th pass is too exaggerated. Some people say that the 4th passer is so powerful that he not only blows up a bunch of second-level organ puppets, but even beats up the examiner in the passage. Up! How can you say this is possible? The examiners are all serious 3rd-level warriors, and they are the kind of 3rd-level warriors who are quite outstanding in all aspects. If you want to beat the examiner, you need at least the strength of a 4th-level warrior. Reaching level 4 martial artist at our age? Yang Yuan shook her head and concluded, it's too fake, it's nonsense. Lu Sheng didn't speak, just ate in silence. Suddenly Yang Yuan seemed to remember something, couldn't hold back her inner curiosity, and asked Lu Sheng, by the way, Lu Sheng, you are the strongest among us, you have reached the 2nd level, and you are still a talented warrior. Did you pass the test? When Yang Yuan asked this question, all the students from Beihe City who were sitting next to her turned their heads to look over. They hadn't joined the conversation, but had actually been listening in silence. Now that it involves their most curious question, they can't help but turn their heads. Well, Lu Sheng stopped what he was doing, not knowing how to answer. He wants to say that he is the nonsense that Yang Yuan said, but people may not believe him. To be honest, it doesn't seem too good. Lu Sheng's hesitant expression fell into the eyes of Yang Yuan and the others, and it immediately changed. Probably not, so sorry to answer. Yang Yuan thought silently in her heart. It's actually normal. The more talented people are, the more proud they are, and the greater the sense of gap they feel after discovering that they are not as good as others. She, Yang Yuan, is still like this, let alone Lu Sheng, a well-known martial arts genius and celebrity in Beihe City, who is much more talented than her. Thinking of this, Yang Yuan quickly comforted her, actually, it's only normal if you don't pass. The entrance examination is so abnormal, how can ordinary people pass? Just as he was talking, suddenly a man who looked like a military officer led a few soldiers into the cafeteria. After scanning around, he walked straight towards Lu Sheng. Everyone looked at these people curiously, not knowing what they were here for. I believe in your strength. If you stay in the training camp for a while, you may not be worse than Cao Yang and the others. Yang Yuan was trying her best to comfort Liu Sheng, but she didn't realize that several people had already walked to her side. A girl sitting next to Yang Yuan couldn't help tugging at her sleeve. Yang Yuan woke up like a dream, looked up, and saw several sets of military uniforms facing her. Yang Yuan was a little confused. But these people were obviously not here for her. Facing Liu Sheng, who had been silently accepting Yang Yuan's comfort, the leading officer said with a serious face, "Student Liu Sheng, right? Because you broke the 18 puppets of the second-level organs in our base during the camp assessment, and you also wounded a lieutenant officer who was unconscious and hospitalized. Now we are going to conduct some routine interviews with you, please cooperate with us. Please cooperate with us to take a trip." The thick voice of the base officer echoed in the huge cafeteria. The base canteen, which was originally noisy, became quiet in an instant. Fall into an eerie dead silence. Almost all the training camp students who were eating were frozen. The expression on his face was frozen, and his body was stiff and motionless. Some even kept their mouths wide open, delivering food into their mouths. "It's all fixed now." All of them remained motionless as if they had been hit by a hold spell. Yang Yuan and a group of students from Beihe City, who were sitting opposite Liu Sheng, had exaggerated expressions to the extreme. Yang Yuan froze in place with a dazed expression, as if 10,000 planes were flying by in her mind. Destroy 18 puppets of secondary agencies. A lieutenant officer was wounded and unconscious and hospitalized. The rumors are true. The fourth person in the rumors that she judged to be nonsense really existed. And it's Liu Sheng. Then she has been comforting Liu Sheng before. Yang Yuan was completely dazed, she didn't know what words to use to describe her inner feelings at this moment, she just felt like she was dreaming. Everything that has just been experienced has become unreal. Good. Liu Sheng stood up very simply, looked down at the plate on the table, and said, "But I'm not full yet, can I pack another one?" "Can." The officer nodded readily and agreed, "We will send someone to pack a copy for you and send it to your dormitory." "Then let's go." Liu Sheng nodded in satisfaction. Then he nodded to the people in Beihe City who were petrified collectively, and followed the officer out of the cafeteria. When Liu Sheng and others left the cafeteria, the petrified magic on everyone was lifted accordingly. In an instant, there was an extremely intense exclamation and discussion in the quiet cafeteria. Damn it! The rumors turned out to be true. Someone really smashed more than a dozen government puppets and sent the assessment staff to the hospital. The rumored fourth person, Liu Sheng from Beihe City, hiss. True Nima monster. Abnormal. But Yang Yuan and other students in Beihe City were so shocked that they couldn't say a word at this time. Thank you for the reminder, thank you for the flowers, there is another chapter waiting. And it should be on the shelves at night, everyone come and support it. 062 Dawn and number 039, T come over. 7 plus more. It's not as troublesome as Liu Sheng imagined. Routine interviews are really interviews. The people at the base asked Liu Sheng a few questions about what happened during the assessment, and then let him go. He was not made to compensate the broken organ puppet, nor was he made responsible for the comatose examiner. When Liu Sheng returned to the dormitory, there was actually a packaged meal from the cafeteria on the table. Almost all of them are meat dishes, and they are exotic animal meat. In order not to avoid waste, Liu Sheng immediately practiced stellar body refining technique. Under the double blessing of stellar body refining technique and natural breathing method, Liu Sheng's stomach full of exotic animal meat was completely digested. The energy in the meat turned into streams of heat, which were quickly absorbed by Liu Sheng. It's almost equivalent to the effect of taking a pill of nourishing marrow. Liu Sheng is quite satisfied with the energy provided by the different animal meat. He was originally worried that after staying in the training camp for a long time, there would be nowhere to replenish the Yang Sui pill after eating. But now there is no such worry. The large and filling exotic meat delicacies perfectly make up for this. Feeling that his qi and blood had increased again, Liu Sheng felt a little satisfied, and just ate the packaged meal. Not long after eating, another soldier came to inform me. Assemble at the base hall at 8 o'clock. It was almost 8 o'clock at this time. Liu Sheng tidied up a little and followed the other party to the auditorium. When he arrived at the place, Liu Sheng walked into the synagogue. Just a few seconds after he stepped through the door, the auditorium, which was still noisy, fell silent for an instant. Hundreds of pairs of eyes looked at him in unison. Shock, surprise, awe, curiosity, doubt. Eyes containing all kinds of emotions surrounded him. The incident in the cafeteria at night had already spread among the students. Liu Sheng of Beihe City, the fourth person who passed the examination according to legend. A peerless fierce man who forcibly smashed 18 puppets of the second-level organs with a pair of fists, and even beat the examiner of the official third-level martial artist's strength into the ICU ward of the base hospital. Monsters, monsters, perverts. Under the exaggeration of various rumors, Liu Sheng has become a scourge in the eyes of some students. So even though he was thin and handsome, and walked in simply and calmly, many people backed away as if seeing a ghost. Liu Sheng walked towards the seats in the auditorium, and the students who were sitting there immediately got up one after another, scrambling to hide behind. If you look down from the top, it feels like Liu Sheng is carrying some kind of invisible force field with him. Wherever he passed, the crowd retreated one after another. Liu Sheng randomly found a seat and sat down. After sitting down, I unexpectedly found that not everyone ran away, and there was one person sitting next to Liu Sheng without moving his position. And this person Liu Sheng happened to know, it was the girl named Charlene who had the potential to be a spiritual teacher. It was the first time that Liu Sheng was so close to Charlene, and unexpectedly found that this girl was really pretty. Yang Yuan's appearance is good enough, Xiaolin's facial features are a little more delicate than hers, and her temperament is also very special. Wenwen is quiet, like a top student in the class. But she seemed to be a little cold, and her body was shaking slightly. It may be that the temperature of the indoor air conditioner is too low. Liu Sheng thought casually in his heart. As expected of Charlene, our only psychiatrist this year, dare to sit next to that monster Liu Sheng, sitting so close. Genius is always proud, let alone a genius like Charlene. Although Liu Sheng is perverted, I bet Charlene is not afraid of him at all. Really? Charlene sat on her seat, shivering. She was terrified. That man, that horrible guy. At this moment, she was actually sitting next to her, and the distance between her and her was less than 3 meters. Charlene could almost hear her long breathing. Hearing the exclamation and discussion of the people behind her, Charlene felt like crying. What genius pride, pride ass. It's not that she doesn't want to run or change seats, but her legs are weak and she can't stand up at all. Ever since the experience at the entrance of the passage during the day, Charlene would sometimes think of those cold eyes, that side face hidden in the darkness, and that poor young man who was dragged by one leg and lying on the ground like a dead body. It was terrible. Like a lingering nightmare. Every time I think about it, I break out in a cold sweat. Charlene couldn't control her body, and her mental strength curled up in her mind, trembling uncontrollably. Don't come here. Don't lean any further. Charlene shouted in her heart. Is that Liu Sheng? 4 or 5 rows behind Liu Sheng's left, a stout young man with dark skin and a bit of hostility on his face was staring closely at Liu Sheng's back. Strength-type talent fighters, the early stage is really amazing. I don't know if your fist can penetrate my stone skin, come and try it, haha. In the young man's eyes, there was a blazing fighting spirit that was slightly crazy. On the other side behind Liu Sheng, a handsome boy with a flowing hairstyle was also looking at Liu Sheng. Beside him, a dozen or so teenagers guarded him like stars surrounding the moon. Jin He, this Liu Sheng is so arrogant, he has occupied the positions of so many people by himself. However, his strength is really terrifying, and I don't know if it's true. There are a total of 18 second-level organ puppets, and there is also an examiner of third-level warriors. Yes. Hearing the amazement of the people around him, the handsome boy sneered and said, "It's enough to believe half of the rumors, God knows how many unknown inside stories there are. This Liu Sheng has strength, but his upper limit is just that. Strength-type talent warriors are basically like this. At the beginning, they are so fierce that they have all kinds of exaggerated achievements. But in fact, a lot of potential has been used up, and the later it becomes, the more mediocre it becomes. Aren't we in the early stage now? Isn't it necessary to let him continue to be rampant during this period of time?" Some teenagers said unwillingly. The delicate boy said lightly, "Not necessarily, after entering this training camp, the progress is very fast. The comparison is the potential. My potential is definitely stronger than his, plus I am a speed-type talent warrior, so my advantage over him is obvious. No matter how strong his strength is, he must first be able to keep up with my body skills and speed. I thought every battle was a narrow and claustrophobic environment like the assessment passage, hehe. I didn't bring out my speed advantage during the assessment." The handsome boy smiled, his face full of confidence and calmness that everything was under control. 2 chapters have been added today, and there will be explosive updates on the shelves, hope you support. 063 Strong Mentality, Rules of Survival, 1/10. This should be Cao Yang, then this is Meng Jinhe. The mental power was slightly dispersed, and the entire auditorium could be seen in a panoramic view, and the performance of the people behind him could naturally be seen clearly. Among them, there were 2 particularly hostile gazes, which caught Liu Sheng's attention. Of course, just a little attention. I didn't take it to heart at all. These 2 guys are just stepping into the second level of warriors. 2 weeks ago, Liu Sheng might have looked at them a little bit. Now? There is nothing to pay attention to something that can be crushed to death with a single hand. As I killed more and more zombies in the dream space, the strength of the zombies became stronger and stronger, and I seemed to become more and more violent. He wasn't like this before. It was as if in the assessment channel, the puppet was not enough to beat the organs, so he beat the examiner as well. In the past, he should have thought about it carefully, and then guessed the identity of the opponent, so that this unnecessary battle would not have happened. Liu Sheng pondered for a while. Find out why. Mentality change. As his strength continued to grow stronger, his original mentality also quietly changed. His strength has become stronger, so he doesn't bother to think about and weigh many things. Because using strength to directly crush the past, everything will become much simpler. Weak people need resourcefulness to achieve their goals, while strong people are only used to talking with their fists. It was as if there was a stone lying in the middle of the road. People with weak strength will think about whether to find a way to move this stone away, or to take a detour. The strong will not think so much. Just kick it away. It's a strong man's mentality. Liu Sheng was surprised to find that in a trance, he had grown to such a height. He is no different from the muddle-headed, submissive young man back then. Just as he was thinking, 2 people walked in outside the auditorium. A man and a woman, both wearing dark blue proper military uniforms. Liu Sheng noticed the badges on the shoulders of the 2, which were the shoulder badges that only school officers were qualified to wear. And those who are eligible to obtain such a military rank in one military region need at least 5 levels of strength. He clearly remembered his first experience in life. Even though he had won a lot of military exploits, he was still a lieutenant until his death. Just because it is only a 4th-level warrior. Both the man and the woman looked quite good, and their whole body was filled with a powerful aura. After the 2 entered, the noisy auditorium quickly fell silent. I'm Dong Qingxiu, the chief instructor of the Genius Training Camp in the capital of Dongning. This is the deputy chief instructor, Major Qin Shaojun. The woman of the pair introduced herself straight to the point. Liu Sheng met both of them once, at the end of his camp assessment. The beautiful Dong Qingxiu said coldly, "In the next few days, the two of us will be in charge of all your training. Next, let me briefly talk about the rules of this training camp. First, we will not interfere with your practice in life. You are all top martial arts geniuses in each city. I believe that everyone should have a set of practice methods and daily routines that are most suitable for them. This training camp will not set up any courses, and all practice depends entirely on you. To put it bluntly, even if you stay in the dormitory and sleep all day long, we won't care." Liu Sheng's expression became a little weird. "Although I know it is impossible, I always feel that this sentence is aimed at myself." The first rule directly exploded among the students, and many people talked about it. "No classes? So what are we studying for? A waste of time. Fuck, it's better to be at home, at least there are tutors to give one-on-one guidance." "How so?" Dong Qingxiu coldly interrupted everyone's discussion. "It's still too late to choose to leave." The discussion stopped. Although there were many opinions, everyone came here with great difficulty, so how could they be willing to go back? "Then I will continue." Dong Qingxiu continued, "Secondly, all your daily needs in the training camp need to consume corresponding points. Every meal you eat, every dormitory you live in, water for bathing, toilet paper for going to the toilet, everything, you need to pay for it. It's just that the money is replaced by points. To put it simply, in the training camp, points are needed for everything, and points can be exchanged for everything. Even." Dong Qingxiu paused for a moment, then swept everyone off the court with a cold gaze, and said word by word, "If you see someone upset in the training camp, fight with him in private, and then accidentally put the opponent was killed. You can also use points to offset. Of course, we will not be responsible if the other party's relatives trouble you after leaving the training camp." The teenagers kept silent, and were so frightened by Dong Qingxiu's words that they couldn't utter a word. Although they are geniuses, they are formal warriors. But when the two cold words "killing" were thrown in front of them, they couldn't help but feel scared. Liu Sheng's eyes lit up bit by bit, and there was even a faint smile on the corner of his mouth. Interesting. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. This training camp is very interesting. In the advanced reinforced concrete forest, with such a simple but cruel jungle law established, Liu Sheng felt as if he had been thrown into a survival game. And the fun has only just begun. "Then how do we get our points?" Finally someone asked a question. "Good question." Dong Qingxiu said lightly, "There are many ways to obtain points. 1. Get the approval of me, Major Qin Shaojun, or any other instructor in the training camp. As long as we feel that you are good enough in a certain aspect, we will give you certain points according to your mood. 2. Pass the examination. We will assess you from time to time, as long as you pass, you can get a lot of points. The camp entrance exam during the day is one of them. 4 of you have passed the exam, and the points have been issued to your respective ID cards, which are the room cards of your dormitory. You can check it yourself after you go back. 3. Help the base to share various back-office tasks. Simply put, it is doing chores. However, the points obtained in this way will be very small, far less than the above 2 ways." After Dong Qingxiu finished speaking, there was another burst of heated discussions. "Finally, let me explain in detail what points can do." Everyone immediately pricked up their ears. Through Dong Qingxiu's introduction, everyone learned about it. Points can be exchanged for various daily necessities, food and sleep, and can also be exchanged for the guidance of the base instructors, including the most powerful Dong Qingxiu and Qin Shaojun. It can also be exchanged for the use time of some special training rooms in the base. This is what Liu Sheng is most interested in, but Dong Qingxiu only briefly mentioned a few words in the introduction, and he needs to understand it slowly. Points can also be exchanged for various privileges, not to mention murder privileges, which are too extreme and basically no one will use them. Liu Sheng reckoned that although Dong Qingxiu said so before, if you really killed someone in the base, what should you do with you after you go out? In addition, the points can even be exchanged for the qualifications to be recommended to the University of Dongning Province and the University of the Eastern Military Region. This is an exaggeration, it is equivalent to going directly to a prestigious school without the college entrance examination. But when you think about it, it doesn't help. Those who have the ability to obtain these points in the training camp can easily pass the college entrance examination to the provincial university. After the introduction, Dong Qingxiu didn't say any nonsense, and left after announcing the end of the meeting with Qin Shaojun. The rest of the students began to discuss about the few rules that Dong Qingxiu said just now. Basically, people from one city gathered to discuss. When Liu Sheng saw Yang Yuan and others from Beihe City consciously approaching him, he ignored them and walked out of the hall. 064 Whetstone, 2/10. Well. Seeing the back of Liu Sheng leaving, Yang Yuan couldn't help but sighed softly even though she had already guessed that this would be the result. Too proud of this Liu Sheng, he doesn't take us seriously. Someone from Beihe City said angrily. Who made him strong? There is a reward for passing the assessment. You don't have to worry about points in a short time. Someone said sourly. No matter how many points you have, there will be a day when you will run out. No matter how strong you are, you will still be strong now. He is not the only one who passed the assessment. Xiaolin from Baoding City, Cao Yang from Yanglan City, Meng Jinhe from Donggang City, which one is weaker than him? Even if his strength is temporarily inferior to him, but in the training camp, sooner or later he will catch up. And everyone has a team to support him, and he is alone. When someone asks him to trouble him, it depends on how he handles it alone. Maybe you will come back and beg us when the time comes. Haha, what you said makes sense. I began to look forward to Liu Sheng's expression at that time. Yang Yuan listened to other people's discussion and remained silent. These people's analysis seems to make sense, but they seem to have overlooked a very important point. Without the support of a great master like Liu Sheng in the early stage, their group of geniuses who are at the bottom of the city, whether they can survive until the end of Liu Xin's decline is a big question. Finally gone, that horrible guy. Charlene let out a long sigh of relief, as if she had let go of a heavy boulder in her heart. She felt relieved. As long as Liu Sheng appeared beside her, Charlene felt uncomfortable and felt out of breath. Now that 010 Liu Sheng has left, she has slowly returned to her original genius appearance. Practitioners from Baoding City gathered around spontaneously. As the recognized #1 genius among them, Charlene naturally became the core of the students in Baoding City. Charlene was quietly listening to the discussion and analysis of her companions, when suddenly someone patted her on the shoulder and reminded her. Charlene, the chief instructor asked you to go to her after finishing the work. She has something important to explain to you. Oh, I see. Charlene blinked her eyes, but she didn't know why the chief instructor Dong Qingxiu suddenly came to her. A thoughtful student next to him had a look of deep envy on his face. You don't need to guess, it must be a good thing for the chief instructor to find Charlene. Everyone knows that Charlene possesses a rare and powerful spiritual teacher talent, and the chief instructor Dong Qingxiu. It is a powerful spiritual master warrior. It is estimated that in 1 or 2 days, the chores of the entire base will be covered by these brats. Qin Shaojun stood under the street lamp, looking at the brightly lit assembly hall in the distance, and said to Dong Qingxiu beside him. This is also a way to dampen their arrogance and sharpen their minds. It is only good for them. Dong Qingxiu spoke lightly. After becoming the chief instructor, your words have become more and more powerful. Qin Shaojun said with emotion. Dong Qingxiu rolled his eyes at him angrily, then turned serious and said, I thought of it. What do you think? I thought about how to arrange Liu Sheng. Oh. Qin Shaojun's eyes lit up, and he asked quickly, how do you plan to arrange him? The appearance of this freak, Liu Sheng, was completely unexpected by the two of them. On the one hand, although Liu Sheng's talent is outstanding, his potential is limited after all. It's not worth putting too much energy on it, but it's not easy to give up completely. On the other hand, Liu Sheng's strength is too strong, and he is not at the same level as other students. Putting him in this group of people to compete, he probably wouldn't feel any pressure. So how to properly cultivate the seedling Liu Sheng has always been a headache for the two of them. Now that Dong Qingxiu said that she had an idea, Qin Shaojun was naturally curious. Whetstone. Dong Qingxiu's eyes shone brightly under the light of the street lamp, and she said word by word, he is the best whetstone, which can stimulate other people to grow rapidly. Qin Shaojun showed a thoughtful look on his face, and asked back, then have you ever considered a question, what if this whetstone is too strong and hard, and the knife is broken? So, he can't just be a sharpening stone for one person. Dong Qingxiu looked at Qin Shaojun, and said confidently, Xiaolin, Cao Yang, Meng Jinhe. 3 swords together. If it is not enough, add a few other talented warrior Miaozi. I don't believe it, it still can't withstand his pressure. If this plan works well, the results of this talent training camp may far exceed our expectations. And Liu Sheng is also very likely to raise his upper limit. A fierce 6th level warrior in actual combat is still not as significant as a grandmaster after all. No matter how weak the master is in actual combat, he can easily overthrow 10 peak warriors at level 6, no matter how strong the latter's combat awareness is. Qin Shaojun was thoughtful. I'm going to give Charlene a basic training as a psychiatrist tonight, you can focus on taking care of that Meng Jinhe, you are just the right professional. Dong Qingxiu said. Qin Shaojun nodded, what about Cao Yang and the others? Cao Yang, I will find a way to get Qi Meng's cultivation experience for him, and even let Qi Meng personally guide him online. As for the other seedlings, Dong Qingxiu thought for a while, and said, let's secretly give more points to support. Qin Shaojun looked at Dong Qingxiu with a complicated expression and said, it can be seen that you really want to lead this training camp well. Dong Qingxiu said lightly, since it is a task assigned to me, I will naturally do my best to do it well. It is not my style to be perfunctory. In this case, Qin Shaojun seemed to have made a certain decision, and said seriously, then I can't hold you back. From today on, don't be salty. Try to be the best martial arts teacher. Dong Qingxiu showed a smile on her face, and said gratifiedly, if you had such an awareness long ago, your progress in martial arts will definitely be better than now. Before he finished speaking, he saw Qin Shaojun frowned and thought about it carefully, then shook his head and said, forget it, I'm a little tired today because of that kid Liu Sheng's busy work for a long time. Let's not be a salted fish from tomorrow on, I go back to bed first. The smile on Dong Qingxiu's face froze instantly. After Liu Sheng returned to the dormitory, he first checked the points mentioned by Dong Qingxiu at the rally. So much. Liu Sheng was a little surprised when he saw the result. There are actually 1,000 points. He didn't know how many points the other 3 people who passed the camp entry assessment got, but this number was really quite a lot. After the rally, the camp officer sent everyone a form. The above lists all the facilities and activities in the training camp, whether points are needed, how many points are needed, as well as the ways and jobs to obtain points, how many points can be obtained respectively, and so on. Liu Sheng looked at the introduction on the form. It only takes 5 points to eat a meal in the training camp, self-service. It's cheaper to get a night's sleep, and 1 point will do. In other words, if only 3 meals a day plus sleep are met. This 1,000 points is enough for Liu Sheng to stay in the training camp for nearly 3 months. But if you want to use a special training room or ask the base instructor to guide you, it's not cheap. It takes 10 points to use the gravity training room for 1 hour. It takes 10 points to use the Shen Fa training room for 1 hour. It takes 20 points to use the actual training room for 1 hour. Ordinary instructors need to spend Bo points to guide once. The chief instructor and the deputy chief instructor need to spend 100 points to guide once. In contrast, ways to earn points. The points that the assessment can provide are quite considerable. For each assessment, no matter how big or small, as long as you pass the assessment, you can get 20 points. If the test scores are good, you can get 50 points. If it is excellent, there will be a full 100 points. Of course, the entrance assessment has just ended, and it is obviously unrealistic to obtain points through the assessment in a short period of time, so there are only other ways, such as various back-office work. However, the points that can be obtained through this method are pitifully small, and only 5 points can be obtained by cleaning the training room once. The smallest martial arts training room in the training camp has several hundred square meters. Sheng suddenly feels sorry for those students who have not passed the camp entrance examination, and the current points are still 0. It can be predicted that for a long time, these guys have to rely on being cleaners to maintain food and clothing. 065 Arms like guns, elemental talent warriors, 3/10. Sheng focused on checking the introductions of several special training rooms. Among them, the ones that interested him the most were the gravity training room and the body skill training room. According to the introduction in the data, these two kinds of training rooms are highly targeted to the warrior's blood value and speed, and the effect is very good. Now Sheng has no shortage of inheritance at all, no lack of experience guidance, and no shortage of tonics for the time being. What he lacks most is this rare auxiliary cultivation environment. If it can be used well, it will undoubtedly greatly increase his cultivation speed to another level. Go and see tomorrow, anyway, I have more points. Sheng made up his mind, threw the room card and form aside, and started his daily practice. Stellar body refining technique plus natural breathing method, practiced over and over again without getting tired. With the continuous improvement of Sheng's strength, coupled with the continuous excavation of his own potential in natural breathing method, the burden of stellar body refining technique on him is getting smaller and smaller. It would take a long time to completely drain all of Sheng's physical energy if he just practiced stellar body refining technique. It's much different from the situation where you are so tired that you don't want to move a finger after doing it a few times at the beginning. This also means that the introductory chapter of stellar body refining technique, the exercise effect on Sheng is constantly weakening. Dream World. On the dilapidated street, Sheng wrestled with 4 or 5 figures. All the hard bones left in the 2 nearby streets were attracted by him in one go. Sheng nimbly walked among the zombies, punching and hitting them from time to time. The agility that broke through the bottleneck period was of great help to Sheng in actual combat. The 5 zombies in front of them, no matter which one they were, would surpass Sheng in terms of pure strength. The strongest among them, a tall zombie with half of a dark red headband tied on his head, was several times more powerful than Sheng. Its fist Sheng didn't dare to hit it hard at all, and could only rely on its movement and the cover of other zombies to keep dealing with it. As time goes by, the number of zombies in the warband continues to decrease. After the establishment of the Shiquan martial arts, Sheng has almost no obvious shortcomings, and he can deal with any part and any form of attack skillfully. His brain was running fast, and the various punches, kicks, and palms that were classified into categories in his memory, were constantly surging, turning into the purest fighting instinct, and freely pinched and swayed in Sheng's hands. The essence of martial arts is the body, as long as the speed and strength are fast enough, all moves are false. But if the speed and strength are not as good as the opponent, then skills are needed to make up for it. Powerful skills are the capital for martial arts geniuses to leapfrog challenges. Sheng is now relying on his strong skills to bully these zombies whose brains are shriveled. During the channel assessment, I met the examiner of the 3rd level warrior. Although the opponent was caught off guard, I still knocked him down and knocked him out within a few strokes. Completely crushed. As a practitioner of Shaolin martial arts, my skills are much higher than ordinary warriors. Unless my opponent can directly slap me to death, there is a possibility of a comeback. But against these zombies who don't even have consciousness and only have a little fighting instinct left, they still fight so hard. These guys, how terrifying were their strengths before they were alive. Sheng punched the headband zombie in front of him hard. Perfect boxing method, 6 times the strength of stars, natural breathing method, spiritual force promotion. With all kinds of bonuses, this move almost represents Sheng's current extreme combat power. He doesn't know the exact combat power value, but it has definitely exceeded 100,000. The fist tore through the air, making a sharp and ear-piercing sound, so fast that the naked eye could hardly catch it. Boom! This punch hit the headband zombie hard. The headband on the headband of the zombie instantly dented and disintegrated, and then the entire head exploded. The headless zombie maintained a punching posture and fell heavily to the ground. The body also weathered, leaving only a thick and long black line of smoke rushing into Sheng's body. Call. After absorbing the memory belonging to the headband zombie, Sheng let out a long breath of foul air, opened his eyes, and showed a complicated look on his face. No wonder it's so strong. According to the speculation of the memory picture, the strength of this zombie with a headband may have reached level 6 before his death. It is equivalent to the level of Xiao Yuhi, the head of the Beihai City Martial Arts Association. Go one step further. It is the master. If you don't reach the Grand Master, your strength is already so strong. If I hadn't used my mental strength to block the punch just now, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to take it. Thinking of it, Sheng couldn't help feeling terrified. In the final confrontation with the headband zombie actually almost hit him. It's just that he used his mental power to deflect the zombie's fist with the headband a few inches, causing the opponent's attack to miss, and he counter-killed him. Psychic power still has a great effect. It's no wonder that psychic masters are so powerful. This is the most common use of my spiritual power, but it's only used against zombies. If it's really a level 6 powerhouse, it shouldn't be so effective. Big. A real level 6 warrior would be much stronger than a zombie, with a combat power of more than 500,000. Sheng's spiritual power probably wouldn't be able to shake the opponent's punch trajectory at all. The 2 streets were completely emptied by Sheng, and the harvest was a lot of more valuable martial arts memories. Sheng didn't delay, and sat directly on the ground to practice crystal conception thoughts. After absorbing the memory of the zombies, the effect of practicing crystal conception is the best. Once down, no matter whether it is Shaolin martial arts or spiritual strength, they can make great progress. 0 Looking for flowers. In my mind, the crystal figure that was dyed black again kept breathing, and gradually became clear. When Sheng opened his eyes again, the clarity of his eyes became more and more obvious, like crystal carving. This is the performance of the mental power to improve again. Spiritual strength has increased by more than 30%, and 2 of Shaolin martial arts have broken through the bottleneck period, and the overall strength has become stronger. Sheng was quite satisfied. This time I gained a lot, especially the memory provided by the zombie with the headband. The zombie with the headband was a master of marksmanship before his death, and he had profound attainments in marksmanship. This memory absorption directly pushed Sheng's marksmanship awareness to the level second only to boxing techniques. Although I haven't touched a real long gun so far, I will be able to use it sooner or later. On the battlefield with alien beasts, the gun is recognized as a big killer. And it's not impossible to use it now. Sheng punched out violently. 0-0. His fists screamed like weapons tearing through the air. The arm is like a gun. It is also helpful for empty-handed combat. After sorting out the harvest, Liu Sheng stood up and returned to his temporary base in the dream space. In fact, it is where he stores his optical brain. During this period of time, in addition to combat training in the dreamland, Liu Sheng used his optical brain to view various materials he was interested in. It's also a way of pastime. As Liu Sheng checked more information on the optical brain, he learned more and more about the development of martial arts in the next 10,000 years. For example, Liu Sheng has been hearing about the talented warriors recently. The emergence of talented warriors is actually a manifestation of human evolution. Martial arts itself is a process of constantly tapping the potential of the human body and constantly promoting its own evolution. During this process, it is normal for the body to experience various incredible changes. Now that the martial arts have been 300 years old, talented warriors are rare, and even one of them appears. For example, Beihe City where Liu Sheng lives, if you don't count him, there hasn't even been one in the past 10 years. But in the future, martial artists with special talents are not to say everywhere, at least they are not rare. Moreover, the talents awakened by talented warriors also have high and low points. The worst is the strength type. It is fierce in the early stage, and it becomes mediocre in the later stage. Unless it is a power-type talent that is perverted to the extreme, it is the existence at the bottom of all talents. The second is defensive type and speed type. These two types of talents are slightly better than the strength type, with greater growth and higher upper limit. There are two in this talent training camp. In fact, whether it is strength, defense, or speed, these talents are all good. It can only be said that one aspect is more prominent than normal people, and it is still within the acceptable range of normal people. Further up, it's a bit outrageous. What about elemental talents? 066 I am the Grand Master, Immortal Golden Body, 4/10. Liu Sheng looked at this part of the introduction with some surprise. Compared with the strength, speed, and defensive talent fighters above, these elemental talent fighters are real monsters, new humans. Elemental talent warriors have the terrifying ability to manipulate wind, fire, ice, thunder, and other natural elements, and their growth and upper limit are more than 10 times that of ordinary Tongtian talent warriors. Isn't this similar to superpowers and mutants? Liu Sheng couldn't help being amazed. According to the data, even in the future of martial arts for more than 10,000 years, elemental talent warriors are absolutely rare. Finally, there is the psychiatrist known to Liu Sheng. In fact, a spiritual master is also considered as a kind of gifted warrior, and it is the rarest, most precious, and powerful existence among gifted warriors. But in the next 10,000 years of martial arts, a mature, systematic method for cultivating spiritual power has long been developed. Example: crystal view ideas. Anyone with a little talent can try to practice. Therefore, in the future, the number of psychic masters will be much higher than that of elemental talented warriors. Whether it's a talented warrior or an ordinary warrior, there is actually one way to go to the end. After reading the material 357, Liu Sheng said to himself. In the early stage of martial arts, talented warriors may have an absolute crushing advantage over ordinary warriors, but in fact, the further they go, the less obvious this advantage is. As far as I know, there are 7th level Grand Masters and 8th level Grand Masters. Qi and blood are as powerful as a river, a punch can break mountains and crack the ground, and divert rivers. Invulnerable to guns and bullets. Aren't these equivalent to the embodiment of strength, defense, and speed talent? Further up, the 9th level Martial Saint, the 10th level and 11th level Star Powerhouse possess all kinds of incredible supernatural powers. Calling the wind and rain, controlling the thunder, may not be impossible. Where is it worse than elemental talent warriors? Those with a strong will in martial arts can even control their own cell evolution. Can ordinary spiritual masters do it? Martial arts practice is fundamentally different routes leading to the same goal. In the final analysis, it is all about tapping one's own potential, unlocking the treasures of the human body, and promoting the continuous improvement of the level of life. Liu Sheng himself is a prime example. He practiced stellar body training technique and natural breathing method, which caused his qi and blood to skyrocket, and his combat power far surpassed that of ordinary people, so he was mistaken by the outside world as a talented warrior of strength. In fact, whether he is or not, he himself knows better than anyone else. Mortals always like to classify all kinds of incredible things that happen to others as geniuses and miracles. In fact, Liu Sheng clenched his fists, and the light in his eyes danced. What talent can compare to your own hard work and wisdom? Martial arts itself is the greatest miracle of the human race. Turning off the introduction of talented warriors on the optical brain, Liu Sheng suddenly remembered that he hadn't checked his life history for a long time. Thinking of this, he gave instructions to the optical brain. Call up my profile. Calling. Name, Liu Sheng. Sex, male. Lifespan, June 297 Budo, March 452 Budo. Martial arts strength, level 7 warrior. Life experience, became a second-level martial artist at the age of 18, causing a sensation in Beihai City. Later, under the recommendation of the Beihai City Wushu Association, he participated in the talent training camp of Dongning Province and won the first place in the training camp. In the same year, he entered Dongning Wuhan University with the first place in the city, the first place in the province, and the 53rd place in the country. At the age of 40, he was promoted to a 6th-level warrior. Promoted to a 7th-level grandmaster at the age of 65. In July 452 of Budo, an old injury occurred, and he died at the age of 156. Liu Sheng's eyes suddenly burst out with a strong light, and a little excitement flashed between his brows. 7th grade master. This time, his future changed again, and he even set foot in the realm of a 7th-level grandmaster in his lifetime. Grandmaster. If it was in ancient times, it could be regarded as a prince. Even now, he is also a very important figure. As an official, he can easily take on provincial important tasks. If you join the army, you will be the general of the army. In other words, even if Liu Sheng is just going on step by step now, he will at least become a grandmaster in the future. This is how he is not disturbed. If it were someone else, if they knew that they would become a master in this life, they would be so happy that they would be able to grab the ground. Call. Liu Sheng took a deep breath, trying to calm down the agitation in his heart. Since I have become a grandmaster, then the evaluation and authority should be improved again. Sure enough, look down. Liu Sheng's historical evaluation of the character has indeed reached 3 stars. And the authority has reached level 3. 3rd level authority, then the level of exercises I can search for in the fire resource curry is also higher. Liu Sheng was very happy, and quickly gave instructions to the optical brain. Inquiry, the follow-up exercises of star body refining technique, natural breathing method and crystal conception thoughts. Recalling. Sure enough, this time the optical brain did not remind itself of insufficient permissions. Not long after, 3 exercises were searched out and presented to Liu Sheng. Stellar Body Refining Technique, Advanced Chapter. Cultivation Method Introduction, created by Wang He, the 11th level powerhouse of the Wu Meng, and included in the Fire Plan. Natural Breathing Method, Advanced. Introduction to the exercises, created by Yang Yizhu, the 11th level powerhouse of the Martial Arts League, it was included in the Fire Plan. Crystal View Ideas, Advanced Edition. Introduction to the exercises, created by Duan Yifeng, the 11th level powerhouse of the Wu Meng League, and incorporated into the Fire Plan. Liu Sheng casually clicked on the advanced chapter of Stellar Body Refining Technique. Just the first glance made his breathing quicken. Advanced basic form of stellar body refining technique. To cast the will of the stars to be immortal, to create the immortal golden body. The immortal golden body, Stellar Body Refining Technique Muscle and Bone Exercise. Sheng knew a long time ago that after a warrior reaches the third level, he must start to exercise his muscles and bones. This is also a stage in which warriors really lay the foundation, widen the gap, and produce transformation. Because at the fourth level, the inner strength of a warrior is bred from the flesh and bones. How well the muscles and bones are torn is directly related to the strength of the subsequent internal strength and the gap in combat effectiveness. And in the advanced chapter of Stellar Body Refining Technique, there is actually a method 0. Call it Immortal Golden Body. From the advanced chapter of Stellar Body Refining Technique, if I can successfully complete this stage of tempering, I can improve myself to an incomparably astonishing level in all aspects. And this stage of training is really laying the foundation for the future development of Stellar Body Refining Technique. Until the state of immortality, cell rebirth, and physical invincibility. It's normal to think about it carefully. Stellar Body Refining Technique claims to cultivate to the end, you can store the mighty power of a star in your body. If your physique is not strong enough, how can you hold a star? I'm afraid that the heat wave released during practice burned myself to death. Sheng took a rough look at the specific practice process of Star Body Refining Technique at this stage. I suddenly found that the difficulty of the unlocked new movements has increased by an unknown number of times, and many of the movements need to be done together with mental stimulation to be effective. Sure enough, the road to martial arts leads to the same goal, and the cultivation of the physical body is also inseparable from the assistance of spiritual power. Looking at it from another angle, the cultivation threshold of Stellar Body Refining Technique is also very high. Not just anyone can practice it. Possesses the gift of a psychiatrist. Sheng summed up a few sentences, and continued to read the advanced chapter of Natural Breathing Method. Another burst of shortness of breath. Powerful. After reading the advanced chapter of Natural Breathing Method, Sheng can only say these two words. The Natural Breathing Method, which was a little mediocre at the introductory stage, finally bloomed in the advanced chapter, which is not inferior to the dazzling brilliance of the other two 11-level exercises. The advanced chapter of Natural Breathing Method only teaches one thing, that is, how to cultivate a special inner strength. Warrior is promoted from level 3 to level 4, although the blood value does not increase much, but the combat power can undergo a qualitative change. It is because of the emergence of inner strength. And at this stage, the distance between warriors is also completely widened. A talented warrior with a solid foundation and 3.6 talents will far exceed the strength of ordinary warriors. Among them, some people can even carry special attribute abilities in their inner strength. Of course, this can only be done by those elemental talent warriors who are not rarer than pandas. The crushing advantage of elemental talent fighters in the early stage of martial arts is also because of this. And the advanced chapter of Natural Breathing Method tells how to make an ordinary warrior achieve the same level as an elemental talent warrior. Bring special attributes to your inner strength. Even beyond. And more than one special attribute, you can switch back and forth. Communicate with nature, find the elemental attributes that suit you, so as to transform your inner strength. Not only that, but the natural breathing method can also continuously temper your inner strength, making the quality of the practitioner's inner strength 10 times that of ordinary warriors, dozens, even 100 times the height. Sheng's heart was agitated and he couldn't calm down for a long time. This method of producing elemental talent fighters can already be described by words such as reshaping the foundation and surpassing the sky. On the other hand, the advanced chapter of Crystal Ideas is a bit mediocre compared with the first two. 067 Divine Illumination of the Pluto Sutra, an unimaginable horror technique. 5/10. The content of the advanced chapter of Crystal Conception Ideas is just to replace the visualized crystal figure with a stronger diamond figure. The spiritual power cultivated in this way will be purer and stronger. The 3 advanced exercises brought too many surprises to Sheng, and each one was stronger than the other. For a while, Liu Sheng didn't know which part to start to practice well. Just when Liu Sheng felt that he had gained a lot, he suddenly remembered something very important. By the way, the authority has been increased, and the combat skills of the psychiatrist should be able to be queried. Thinking of this, Liu Sheng immediately issued an order: call out all the fighting skills that are suitable for the cultivation of a second-level psychiatrist. Calling. In just a few seconds, a large amount of content was presented to Liu Sheng. Silver air shuttle, seamless knife wheel, hexagonal star cone. As Liu Sheng read through each article, his eyes became brighter and brighter, but his brows slowly frowned. How did this happen? Is the battle threshold for a psychiatrist so high? Liu Sheng was a little depressed. It's not that these skills are not strong enough, or that they are not suitable for him, but he currently has no conditions to practice these skills. Almost every kind of fighting technique of a psychiatrist needs to be matched with corresponding different weapons. Moreover, the manufacture of these special weapons has very high requirements, involving various designs of 02, the concept must be customized by professional people, and the materials for making various weapons also have requirements. No, a psychiatrist is simply a kryptonite profession. He now finally understands that the power of a spiritual teacher is not only based on the spiritual teacher itself, but also closely related to the development level of contemporary martial arts technology. The manufacture of many weapons requires high smelting technology, which may not be possible with the current level of martial arts technology. Not to mention those special materials that will be hard to find in the next 10,000 years. Liu Sheng didn't give up, and continued to give instructions: simulate the environment, screen, and find the weapons of the psychiatrist that can be created in 300 years of martial arts. Screening. The content in front of me has been greatly reduced, leaving only a few kinds. Liu Sheng glanced briefly, and continued to speak. Inquiry: the production location of the corresponding weapon materials, the simulated environment, 300 years of martial arts. This is the first time Liu Sheng has screened for this condition. This has involved the terrain changes over the past 10,000 years of martial arts, and the distribution of precious mineral maps. I don't know if it will work or not. The result was unexpected. There really are. The 300 years of martial arts have been retrieved, and the distribution of all locations where strategic resources may exist. Good guy, the weapon material of the psychiatrist is directly listed as a strategic material. Liu Sheng carefully looked at the exquisite and detailed map in front of him, and unexpectedly discovered that there are many marked points in the area belonging to the capital of Dongning province on the map, among which are the places where the materials he needs are produced. Afterwards, check the internet or go there in person to see if anyone has discovered or occupied it. Of course, this has to be after the training camp is over. Now that the materials are available, the only remaining problem to be solved is the construction problem. It's definitely not realistic for me to build these weapons myself. I can only rely on the military or the government, so it seems. The light in Liu Sheng's eyes flickered, and he said to himself, I have to find a chance to show my talent as a spiritual teacher. The stronger the talent, the more resources one can obtain, which has always been the rule in the martial arts world. By the way, aren't those first-level powerhouses promoted from psychiatrists? What are they using? Liu Sheng thought about it, and ordered the light brain in another way. Call out, the psychiatrist training system that has been included in the Fire Seed project. Calling. Liu Sheng stared at the blue light in front of him, and saw the content appearing in the blue light. He knows that what can be included in the fire plan is the real essence and core of martial arts for the next 10,000 years. He really wanted to know, after more than 10,000 years, what kind of astonishing skills would a person at the pinnacle of the psychic master possess. Crystal View Ideas has been included in the Tinder project. The first thing that appeared was the Crystal View thought that Liu Sheng had been practicing. Sure enough, Crystal Conception Thoughts is the supreme code of spiritual masters. There was very little content this time, and Liu Sheng thought that there was no result, but he didn't expect that there would be another content after crystal conception. The Sutra of Divine Illumination of Pluto. Introduction to the exercises, created by Duan Yifeng, the 11th level powerhouse of the Wu Meng League, and incorporated into the Fire Plan. Shen Zhao Pluto Sutra, 11 level exercises, Duan Yifeng. It is the same person as the creator of the exercises of crystal conception thoughts. Liu Sheng was stunned. He searched with the idea of giving it a try, but he didn't expect to find a big surprise. Moreover, this Shen Zhao Pluto Sutra is not a fragment, but the whole book. In other words, Liu Sheng directly obtained a complete 11th level exercise inheritance. Then why wasn't there when I searched before? Liu Sheng muttered and began to read this exercise. After he finished reading all the exercises, he couldn't find words to describe the shocking feeling in his heart. It's unbelievable, it's unbelievable. This is Liu Sheng's evaluation of this exercise. Of course, it is also unimaginably powerful. It's no wonder that the search for combat skills just now didn't turn up. Although this skill is within the scope of the skills of a psychiatrist, it is also specially made for combat. But it is not completely. The core of Shen Zhao Pluto Sutra is very simple, and it can be summed up in one sentence. Using mental power, build another body inside the warrior. A body completely woven by spiritual power. It can also be said to be separated. And the fineness of this mental body can reach the level of muscle fibers, cells, and even genes. As for the function of building such a mental clone, there is only one. Amplify yourself. All-round increase without dead ends. Double the power in the true sense. The first level of Shen Zhao Pluto Sutra is to use mental power to promote the body to run faster, so as to achieve the effect of increasing qi and blood. Amplify qi and blood. When Liu Sheng saw it for the first time, he thought he was wrong. You must know that what he has come into contact with so far, what he can achieve, any method, any means of increasing. Both are increases in combat effectiveness. Whether it is the perfect boxing method, or the power of the stars, or the natural breathing method, or the promotion of spiritual force. They all rely on special power-generating skills or extra driving force to stimulate the collision between muscles, so as to achieve the effect of bursting out a more powerful destructive driving force. His base blood value will not change. But Shen Zhao Pluto Sutra directly breaks this point, and it increases qi and blood when it comes up. The follow-up introduction is even more exaggerated to the point that it can increase all attribute abilities, including the effect of mental power itself. This is outrageous. Qi and blood value is the root of everything, even newcomers who have just come into contact with martial arts know it. The growth of qi and blood value can only rely on hard work, tonic, and a little tempering to become stronger. It is true that there are some methods that can temporarily explode the blood value. But that is only a way to temporarily increase the blood value by suddenly stimulating the potential. It is completely different from what is described in the Shen Zhao Pluto Sutra. It's no wonder that the Shen Zhao Pluto Sutra is not divided into entry-level and advanced categories. Just give me the full version when you come up, and you can search for it with the third-level authority. Because it is undoubtedly an extremely huge project to use mental power to achieve 390 complete and detailed construction of a perfect clone. It's too tedious and too difficult. It needs to consume too much time and energy, and at the same time have enough understanding of one's own body structure. If you don't start building from the early stage of martial arts, you can't complete it, even if it's the first step. Liu Sheng took a deep breath, trying to calm down the turmoil in his heart. He was shocked. I still underestimate the 10,000-year-old wisdom crystallization of martial arts. Let alone creating this kind of cultivation method now, even if you think about it. Liu Sheng kept the name Duan Yifeng firmly in his heart. The character who can simultaneously create crystal conception and spiritual illumination of the Hades deserves his admiration from the bottom of his heart. It's rare for a civilization to breed such a character. I'm afraid that even among the 11th level powerhouses, this Duan Yifeng should be considered an absolute top existence. He is an 11th level powerhouse himself, and after going through the Shen Zhao Pluto Sutra to increase it in all directions, how can he still be good? But even such a character can't support the collapsed human civilization. Liu Sheng was silent. Facts have proved that my idea is correct. The ultimate goal of martial arts practice is to be yourself. Even an 11th level psychiatrist would end up taking the path of using his spiritual power to strengthen himself. Looking back now, crystal conception thoughts does have the meaning of laying the foundation for Shen Zhao Pluto Sutra. Crystal view ideas also requires the construction of a crystal human figure. Conversely, if I have achieved something in the spiritual illumination of the Hades, it will be easier and easier to practice the crystal conception. Liu Sheng didn't delay any longer, turned off the optical brain, and started practicing directly in the dream space. He has many things to do, and he still has a long way to go. Every minute and every second cannot be delayed. 068 That Liu Sheng, I don't know what kind of plane he's making, 6/10. In the following time, Liu Sheng devoted himself to the cultivation of the advanced chapter. He didn't care about anything else at all. What training camp, what survival game, what assessment, what special training room. What is more exciting than the crystallization of the wisdom of a peak powerhouse who has practiced martial arts for 10,000 years in the future? No. Except for 3 meals a day, Liu Sheng hardly ever stays at home, and devotes all his time and energy to practicing the 3 major, oh no, it should be the 4 supreme exercises. Fortunately, he has enough points. If it is just food and lodging, it is enough for him to stay until the end of this training. And Liu Sheng's strength has also improved by leaps and bounds in this kind of sleepless and foodless practice, completely reborn. On the huge training ground, there are various training equipment scattered on the ground, as well as residual sweat, blood, and black footprints. Yang Ming was holding a mop in both hands, trying to fight against the stains on the ground. Yang Yuan, haven't you done it yet? Let me help you. A girl walked in and saw Yang Yuan mopping the floor, so she naturally picked up a mop and ran over to help. Thanks. Yang Yuan stopped, wiped the fine sweat from her forehead, and gave the girl a grateful smile. What's the matter? Didn't you help me before? Get it done quickly, or you'll have to stay up late tonight. The girl sighed and buried herself in hard work. Although the movements are not standard, they are quite skilled. Yang Yuan nodded with a complicated expression. It has been almost a month since she entered the training camp. During this time, she can be said to have had a difficult time. Points are required for eating, drinking, lodging in the training camp, and you also need points if you want to experience a better training environment. Points for everything. Where do the points come from? It's not just doing odd jobs, running errands, and working as a cleaner to save up bit by bit. In order to enter the training room once, or ask the instructor for advice, sometimes she has to tighten her belt and go hungry for a meal or two. And the little arrogance that belonged to a genius that he had left had long been exhausted. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. The current Yang Yuan is just a poor guy who hopes to survive in the training camp. One more day is one day. Staying one more day will be of great help to my future martial arts. Yang Yuan thought to herself. During this time, most of the trainees in the training camp had a hard time like her. Everyone gritted their teeth and persisted, and those who couldn't persist left early. Compared with students like them who live in the lower class, those with outstanding talents appear even more dazzling. Have you heard? Cao Yang from Yanglan City has already challenged the quadruple gravity chamber. The helping girl mopped the floor to her side and raised her head to chat with her. Quadruple. Yang Ming was startled, really? Could it be fake? The group of guys in Yanglan City have their tails up to the sky now, blowing at everyone. Cao Yang will immediately attack the 3rd level fighters. After the 3rd level, he will be able to challenge the higher gravity chamber. Maybe he can break the training camp record, blah blah blah. You haven't seen the faces of those people. The girl's face was full of disdain and contempt, but her eyes could not hide the sourness. Yang Yuan was shocked in her heart. Quadruple gravity. She remembered that she just entered the double gravity room for more than 20 minutes last time, and she almost passed it by her back, so she had to come out early. The wasted points made her feel bad. With 4 times the gravity, she can't be directly crushed to death when she goes in. What a pervert! Yang Yuan sighed, shook her head, and continued mopping the floor. The girl who helped her got excited and continued to tell her all the rumors she had heard. Meng Jinhe from Donggang City is also a monster. It is said that the completion of the second stage of the Shen Forum has reached 70%, and the highest record in the history of the training camp is only 20% in the third stage. There is also that Charlene, although her performance in the training room is not outstanding, but I heard people say that Cao Yang and Meng Jinhe both consulted with her in private. What do you think? All lost. Are you saying that a psychiatrist is really that perverted? The girl chattered endlessly, and the process contained various exaggerated tones and exclamations. Yang Yuan dragged herself on the ground silently, without saying a word. Suddenly, the girl's words made her body move slightly. Yang Yuan, what do you think Liu Sheng has been doing these days? Hiding in the room all day and not coming out, learning from the ancient martial arts masters in the novel to retreat and practice? Aren't you on good terms with him? You know that. The movements of Yang Yuan's hands paused for a moment, and soon returned to normal. I have no idea. The girl sighed and said, I guess you don't know either. You said that Liu Sheng is also true, I don't know what kind of plane he is working on. When it came in, it was so fierce that everyone in the camp lost their temper. The result was good, and it withered the next day. The girl picked up the mop in her hand and dipped it in the bucket, then shook her head and said, It's been more than a month now, and everyone, including those of us who can't get along, are all so strong. There are quite a few warriors who have broken through to the second level. Liu Sheng stays behind closed doors, probably his strength has long been caught up by others, and surpassed. Yang Yuan, do you think he is afraid? I knew that there would be such a result, so I simply acted like a turtle to increase my sense of mystery. The girl looked at Yang Ming fixedly and asked. The figure belonging to that boy could not help appearing in Yang Yuan's mind. When not moving, it is like ice, silent, calm, and low-key. When it erupts, it is like a volcano, reckless and insolent, like a demon king who controls everything. No, Liu Sheng is not that kind of person. Yang Yuan said firmly. Then he should come out quickly, he doesn't ask for support, it's good to save us face. The girl was holding a mop with a frantic expression on her face. It's not like you don't know how sad life is now. People in many cities have expert support, and they have finished all the jobs that are easy to score and cost a lot of money. All that is left to us is some dirty and tiring work with few credits. Don't you see that those guys are targeting our people in Beihe City? It's all because Liu Sheng was too arrogant when he entered the camp. Since you want to be a turtle now, don't attract hatred at the beginning, this is not cheating us. Fuck. The girl picked up the mop and poked it heavily in the bucket, splashing water all over the ground. Yang Yuan forced a smile and said comfortingly, You can rest, I can do the rest by myself. After finishing speaking, I cleaned silently and stopped talking. In a room where 6 walls are lead black like rocks, a strong body sits quietly cross-legged. He is a boy of 18 or 19 years old. He has dark skin and ordinary appearance, but there is a trace of determination and ferocity between his brows. The young man sat in the center of the room, motionless, but seemed to be under extremely strong pressure, and the muscles all over his body were trembling slightly. Sweat condensed into a stream, slowly flowing down from the gullies in his muscles, and the bottom was already wet. I don't know how long the time has passed, but the boy's face began to become difficult and dignified. He tried his best to lift half a finger, moved it little by little, and pressed lightly on a white remote control made of unknown material. Drop! With the beeping sound, the air in the whole room seemed to be lightened. The young man let out a long breath, and slowly stood up from the ground, making a series of bone-crushing sounds all over his body. The boy walked out of the room, and a boy who had been waiting at the door immediately handed him a dry white towel. The boy took it casually, and while wiping the sweat off his body, he asked casually, "How long have you persisted this time?" 3 minutes and 52 seconds. The boy quickly reported a number, with excitement and admiration on his face. "Cao Yang, you are so strong. Just now I thought you were going to lose your hold, and I almost pressed you to pause outside, but I didn't expect you to hold on for another 30 seconds. There is a huge one-way glass on the outside of the gravity training room, and people standing outside can clearly see what's going on inside. This prevents the people in the room from causing tragedies because the gravity is too high and physical exertion cannot stop the practice. Is it only a minute or so longer than last time?" Cao Yang, of King Zhao, frowned, and turned to the boy and said, "Next time I go in, I won't press to stop myself. I only need to move my little finger. When the time comes, when you see my movement, you will immediately give it to me." "I pause." "Good," the boy said with admiration. "Cao Yang, if you work so hard, you will soon be able to fully adapt to the quadruple gravity breakthrough master warrior. Who else in the entire training camp will be your opponent by then? A third-level warrior." Cao Yang read a sentence without ending his sentence. After regaining his senses, Cao Yang asked the boy beside him, "Do you know what Charlene is doing recently?" The boy thought for a while, and said, "Charlene seldom haunts the major training rooms. She has individual tutoring from Chief Instructor Dong Qingxiu, and she is also a spiritual teacher. The special training method is completely different from ordinary people." "Psycho teacher." Cao Yang's eyes shot out a strong light, and he said, "So what about the spiritual teacher? As long as my defense is strong enough, the spiritual teacher is just a joke. She Charlene has the sole tutoring of the chief instructor, isn't it?" I didn't hum. The hostility in Cao Yang's eyes rose sharply, and he was confident and flamboyant. Many people don't know that Cao Yang's rapid progress is not only because of his outstanding talent, but also because he has a mysterious and powerful online teacher. 069 Exit, Breath of the Wind, 7/10. Cao Yang didn't know much about that teacher, but he could vaguely feel that the other party's strength was terrifying. At least not inferior to Dong Qingxiu, the chief instructor of the training camp. The point is that Cao Yang's teacher, like him, is also a defensive talent warrior, and the two are almost in the same line. During this period of time, receiving the other party's online advice every night, Cao Yang's strength can be said to be making rapid progress, and his progress is so fast that he can't even believe it. "The reason why I lost against Charlene last time is because I have never fought against a psychic before, and I don't know how psychics fight. If it is now, I may not be unable to win her." Cao Yang was full of confidence. His teacher once said that people like them should fully believe in their own defense and be fearless, so that they can fully display their strength. "Where is Meng Jinhe? How's the situation?" Cao Yang asked again. The boy replied quickly, "Meng Jinhe's cultivation in the Shen Forum has reached 70% of the second stage. In terms of martial arts strength, he should be far behind the main stage. Meng Jinhe is troublesome." Cao Yang frowned. Speed-type talent fighters are the most annoying. He hasn't thought of a good way to deal with Meng Jinhe yet, but just ask the teacher later, the teacher will definitely have a way. Immediately afterwards, Cao Yang asked some people in the training camp who had good strength and awakened talent. The boys answered one by one. Finally, the boy hesitated for a moment, and said, "Cao Yang, that Lu Sheng in Beihe City is still the same, except for eating, he doesn't go out every day, and he doesn't practice. Lu Sheng. Cao Yang was stunned for a moment, then quickly shook his head and said, I almost forgot the name if you didn't mention it. Don't pay attention to Lu Sheng, he is already useless. What can a person who stays in the room for more than a month without going out to do anything good for? Treating him as an opponent is an insult to his biggest 26B. This result, the second stage, 81% complete. Accompanied by the pleasant reminder, a burst of enthusiastic exclamation erupted outside the Shenfa training room. Damn, the river is too fierce, it's 10% better than last time. 81% of the second stage, I haven't even reached the 81% of the first stage. Are you also worthy of following Hebai? With a handsome appearance and a slender figure, Meng Jinhe walked out of the agility training room with a smile, and was greeted with eyes of worship, admiration, and amazement. He enjoyed the crowd. Jinhe, you should be able to enter the third stage soon, right? Meng Jinhe pretended to think about it, nodded and said, it should be soon. As long as you enter the third stage, you will not be far from the historical record of the Shen Forum. Entering the river is to break the record of the training camp. A boy said excitedly. Too awesome, go into the river. Simply my idol. Meng Jinhe was smiling all over his face, with pride and confidence that couldn't be concealed. New record? Isn't this an easy thing? Looking at the group of adoring supporters in front of him, Meng Jinhe was secretly proud. These people definitely don't know, but in fact, they have long been spotted by the Deputy Chief Instructor, Major Qin Shaojun. I have been secretly cultivating myself. If not recognizing your own gifts and talents, why focus on developing yourself? Isn't this the greatest acknowledgement of oneself? If this secret is revealed, the group of people in front of them will probably be astonished and envious. Still don't say it. Just like what the Deputy Chief Instructor said, men, it's better to keep a low profile. Meng Jinhe thought proudly. Charlene sat in a small dark airtight room. There was the sound of something breaking through the room, followed by the sound of something falling to the ground. When the lights in the room came on, Charlene opened her eyes. It can be seen that 3 alls the size of ping-pong balls hover around her like planets. Under her feet, there are tennis balls with a small hole in the middle all over the floor. Charlene's face was slightly pale, and her forehead was covered with fine thin sweat. The door opened, and Dong Qingxiu walked in from the door. That's right, you've made rapid progress, and you're already proficient in controlling 3-star cones. When you can skillfully control 6, it means you've officially entered the rank of 10th level psychiatrist Kangkai. Thank you, Chief Instructor, it's all under the guidance of the Chief Instructor. Seeing Dong Qingxiu, Charlene quickly stood up and said hello seriously. Dong Qingxiu looked at Charlene in front of her, with some approval in her eyes, she nodded and said, it's also inseparable from your own talent and hard work. After complimenting Charlene a few more words, Dong Qingxiu suddenly frowned and said, however, I found that there seems to be a big hole in your spiritual will. What's going on? What kind of psychological shadow has someone left on you? Charlene was startled, and subconsciously a handsome, cold, and frightening profile appeared in her mind. She gritted her teeth and admitted, yes, Chief Instructor. The most taboo thing for a psychiatrist is spiritual loopholes. You must pay attention to this issue. Dong Qingxiu said seriously. Excuse me, Instructor, is there any way to make up for the loophole? Simple. Dong Qingxiu said lightly, find the person who left you a loophole, and then defeat or kill him, the loophole will naturally disappear. Defeat or kill? Charlene was taken aback, then lowered her head and began to consider the possibility of achieving these 2 goals. Seeing her hesitation, Dong Qingxiu couldn't help but said, you are now in a period of rapid growth in strength, it is actually not difficult to do this. Is it not difficult? Charlene bit her lip, a lot of entanglement and fear flashed across her expression. I heard that the terrible guy has been in a decadent state for some time. If his strength stays the same all the time, if he wants to defeat him, maybe he can. Maybe. How? Akba. Dong Qingxiu walked out of the room, leaving Xiaolin alone to think about the training, and ran into Qin Shaojun who was waiting at the door. The talent is very good, but the character needs to be honed. It's too weak. Dong Qingxiu commented pertinently. Let's be soft on the outside and strong on the inside, you can teach it slowly. Qin Shaojun comforted him, and then said, is it too late to regret my original decision now? Dong Qingxiu was puzzled and said, what's wrong? Meng Jinhe's talent isn't good. Qin Shaojun smiled wryly and said, talent is not bad, it's character, well, let's not mention it. Dong Qingxiu said lightly, I've taught you everything, let's just teach it to the end. Anyway, it's only a month or two, and it's over by gritting your teeth. All right. Qin Shaojun was a little helpless. Oh, right. Dong Qingxiu suddenly remembered something, looked at Qin Shaojun and said, Lu Sheng, is it still the same? Hearing Dong Qingxiu mention this name, Qin Shaojun froze for a moment, then nodded immediately. It's still the same. He only goes out 3 times a day. Other than that, he stays in the dormitory. No one knows what he is doing there. I shouldn't have said that in the first place. Dong Qingxiu suddenly said bitterly. At the time of the assembly, she told everyone that she and Qin Shaojun would not interfere with anyone's cultivation methods, as long as you like it, you can stay in the dormitory and sleep every day, and no one will care about you. Who would have thought that there are actually people who stay in the dormitory and sleep soundly every day? The key point is that this guy was the one who performed the best in the camp entrance assessment. She rewarded him with a full 1,000 points, 10 times more than the other 3. This point is enough for the opponent to sleep until the end of the training camp. A very good seedling, how did it become like this? Dong Qingxiu shook her head regretfully and sighed. Qin Shaojun couldn't help asking, then you still use him as a whetstone? Grind your ass. Dong Qingxiu walked out without looking back, leave him alone, teach your Meng Jinhe well, otherwise Xiaolin will praise him very badly in the closed camp assessment. Who is afraid of whom? Qin Shaojun shouted unconvinced. Then, as if remembering something, he sighed lightly. Just when the name, glory, and oppression that belonged to a certain person gradually faded out of everyone's sight, the door of a single dormitory in the training camp finally opened at a time different from the past. Open it quietly. The sunlight shines through the branches of the leaves of the big tree in front of the dormitory, and sprinkles on Lu Sheng's face, leaving spots on his face. Lu Sheng squinted his eyes and stared at the pair of flower-tailed sparrows on the branch for a long time. It wasn't until they flew away that Lu Sheng looked away. It's been a month. Lu Sheng sighed softly. Compared with a month ago, Lu Sheng's figure is now more well-proportioned and upright. He grew taller and his hair grew longer. The skin is fairer and more delicate than a month ago, and the eyes are clearer and brighter. There seemed to be some inexplicable changes in the temperament of the whole person, but it was hard to tell where it was. During this month, Lu Sheng was completely immersed in cultivation. Star Body Refining Technique Advanced Chapter, Natural Breathing Method Advanced Chapter, Crystal Conception Thought Advanced Chapter, A&D. Spiritual Illumination of Pluto Sutra. The 4 kinds of exercises are practiced together until all the nourishing marrow pills in the hand are eaten, and the progress of the practice becomes a little slower. He just stopped. How much has Lu Sheng become stronger this month? No one knows. Even Lu Sheng himself didn't know. I want to find a place where I can properly verify the growth of strength. Lu Sheng looked at his hands and said bluntly. Soon, he thought of it. Lu Sheng raised his foot and walked towards a certain location marked on the base map in his memory. His speed is very fast, and people are gone in the blink of an eye. Not only that, his breath. It seems that there is still a breath of wind. Going to sleep, Brothers, 7 chapters have been updated, all of which are about 3,000 words long, and there will be 3 more chapters tomorrow, so please book all the titles. 070 The breaking sound in the gravity chamber, 8/10. Talent training camps, special training room venues. The venue is huge, almost the size of a football field. There are a total of 8 entrances and exits in the entire venue, and various special training rooms are located in different directions of the venue. At the entrance and exit, 3 boys walked out while talking. I feel that I have made a lot of progress during this period. Next time, I can consider adding double gravity and try it. Then you can help me look at it. I don't want internal organs to bleed into the infirmary. No problem, but if you agree to share a room, if you want to enter twice, you will get a lot of points. Okay, I'll pay half of it. For the low-level training camp students, it is too difficult to obtain points, and every point is precious. However, the cost of using the practice room is too high, so it has become the most popular choice for several people to share a practice room in the form of room sharing. Not only can the value of renting a practice room be maximized, but also they can take care of each other during practice to avoid accidents. While chatting, the 3 of them walked towards a figure. This person is just walking, but the speed is very fast, just a blink of an eye, and the 3 of them lost each other's figure in front of them. I just felt like a gust of wind was blowing across my face. When they came back to their senses, they suddenly found that their bodies turned sideways for some reason, and the middle just made way for a person to pass by. Where does the wind come from while walking? A boy muttered suspiciously. Whatever it is, let's go, still waiting to go to work. Companion greeting. The boy nodded, and was about to continue walking, when he suddenly found that the other one of the 3 was turning his back and staring at the back of the person who passed through them before. Why? Did you see a beautiful woman? The boy stretched out his hand and waved it in front of his companion. There was a little light in the companion's eyes, as if he had discovered some big news. The person who just walked past, have you noticed? Who? The 2 followed the gazes of their companions, only seeing the back of a person who had already walked away. The speed is so fast. The 2 stared at each other. It took a little effort, and it was almost gone, so I still had to walk. Lu Sheng, that guy is Lu Sheng from Beihe City. The companion screamed with excitement. This guy hasn't been out of his room much since the second day he entered the camp. Except for the cafeteria, he hasn't been to any other places. He even came to the training hall today. What news? The eyes of the other 2 also lit up immediately. It's really him. Can't have a fake? Gangjing walked next to us. Quick! Follow up and have a look. The 3 of them didn't intend to leave, and driven by the heart of gossip, they trotted to catch up quickly. Is this the so-called gravity training room? Lu Sheng looked at the small room in front of him. A huge one-way glass is installed on the wall outside the room, which can clearly see the scene in the room. It was empty inside, the walls were pure black. There are a total of 6 such gravity training rooms, most of which are empty, only 1 or 2 people are standing outside the room, and their attention is also on the glass in front of them. Go in and have a look. Lu Sheng took out his ID card and swiped it at the credit card machine outside the gravity training room. The word 365 is displayed on the credit card machine. Lu Sheng has a total of 1000 points, and after staying in the room for so long, there is still a lot left. 10 points for an hour. Lu Sheng thought for a while and decided, then come for 3 hours first. Anyway, it's still early for dinner. Points are deducted by the credit card machine, and the number of points becomes 335. Then the door of the training room made a beep, and the door opened automatically. Lu Sheng walked in. There is a small open space at the entrance, with dense notices posted beside it. You have to take off your shoes, you can't bring anything on your body. Lu Sheng took out all the things in his pockets as he said, put them on a special shelf, and then walked into the room barefoot. I don't know what material the floor of the room is made of, it's very soft. To use the more popular words to describe it is feeling like stepping on shit, the floor will slightly collapse when people walk on it. Sheng walked to the center of the room, and there was a white remote control on the ground. You can tell at a glance that this is used to adjust the gravity multiple. Let's start with double the gravity first. No deep breaths, no preparations. Sheng casually pressed the start button of the remote control in his hand. Fuck, doesn't this guy need to warm up? Outside the gravity room, the three boys couldn't help blurting out when they saw Sheng reaching out to press the start button. This guy has been out of the training camp rhythm for so long that he's lost even basic common sense. A boy shook his head and said, "The gravity training room is not a joke, they are all formal fighters, the muscles and bones may not matter, they can withstand sudden changes in external pressure. But the fragile internal organs are not so easy. If you don't warm up and make relevant preparations according to the regulations, it is easy to cause internal organs to rupture and bleed. Forgot when we first went in. Call him as crazy as he used to be, it's good to suffer a little bit and have a long memory," another boy said gloatingly. The other two nodded in agreement. Drop. Gravity on alert sound. The three boys stared at Sheng in the room with smiles on their faces, ready to watch a good show next. Anyway, there is one-way glass outside the practice room, don't worry about being discovered by Su. Why is there no response? Is it because he hasn't opened yet? It's open. A boy took a special look to the side. There is a small display outside each room, showing the gravity value in the room. Now the display is displaying one-time gravity has been turned on. Then why didn't he respond at all? A boy leaned closer in disbelief, opening his eyes wide to see more clearly. Sheng in the room looked indifferent, as if nothing happened to him. Even the expression didn't change at all. Could it be? The other boy was just about to express his guess, but at this time he saw Sheng in the room suddenly raised his hand and punched violently. The fist was too fast to see clearly. Bo! The three of them froze and looked at each other. Just now was that, the sound of fists breaking through the air. The three of them were dumbfounded. 0, asking for flowers. The gravity training room has sound insulation, and the sound inside will be weakened and deformed when it is transmitted outside, so the sound of fists piercing through the air is transmitted to their ears, leaving only the faint sound of bubbles puncturing. I rely on. A boy couldn't help shouting, really? It's hard for me to move even a little bit in a double gravity room, this guy can still make a hollow sound. Anyone with a bit of common sense in martial arts knows that. If you want to make a piercing sound in the air with your fist, you have to punch fast enough. The other two couldn't believe it either. At this moment, they watched Sheng put down his fist in the room, picked up the remote control again, and pressed it. Drop. The prompt sound of the gravity change in the gravity training room. The three suddenly looked at the display screen outside the room. I saw that a line of clear words jumped out on the display screen 4 times the gravity has been turned on. The eyes and mouths of the three slowly opened almost simultaneously. Just like triplets, their expressions and movements are synchronized, and they turn their heads to look at the scene in one eye. This time, Sheng in the room finally changed and reacted a bit. 0. The relaxed and casual feeling on Sheng's face disappeared, and his expression seemed to be a little more serious. He moved his body to get up from the floor, and then began to move his hands and feet slowly. Ma! A boy with a face full of shock let out 2 voices full of exclamation points from his mouth. 4 times the gravity. Can you still move under 4 times the gravity? Please pinch me to see if I'm dreaming. His 2 companions were not much better than him, and they also looked like they had seen a ghost, and their expressions were full of dullness. The 3 of them just stood there fixedly, watching Sheng in the room continue to move, and the speed of the movement became faster and faster, and the frequency became higher and higher. I made progress today. I lasted for more than 20 seconds under double gravity. The door of a gravity training room next to it opened, and a girl with a pale face and sweating profusely came out of it. The companion who had been waiting at the door hurried up to support him, and praised him with a smile. There was a smile on the girl's pale face, obviously she was also very happy. The two talked for a while, and suddenly noticed something strange next to them. Look at these three guys, they have funny expressions. What are they looking at? Go and see. The two girls walked over curiously, and glanced at the data on the display screen at the door. Quadruple gravity. The expressions of the two girls suddenly changed a little. They should be trotting instead of walking, and they quickly moved towards the glass window. Is Cao Yang in there? It seems that he is the only one in the entire training camp who can enter the quadruple gravity room. Soon, a figure who was constantly kicking and punching came into their sight. The two girls froze for a moment, as if they had been petrified. The expressions on his face were gradually assimilated by the three boys before. Wow! Groove! The five people just stared blankly in front of the glass for quite a while, and after an unknown amount of time, someone suddenly came to their senses and reacted. I'm going to call someone. This shit is too exaggerated. As soon as he turned around, he ran away without a trace. The title is useless. Please ask for the first order, please ask for the full order, please ask for flowers and monthly tickets, thank you everyone again. 071 Breath of the Earth. Liu Sheng is back. 9/10. Boom. Boom. Snapped. On the training field, several boys with baseball bats surrounded Cao Yang and kept attacking him. The hard and flexible baseball bat hit Cao Yang hard, but it made a muffled sound like hitting a stone. The skin of Cao Yang's whole body showed a peculiar rock grey color, and the wooden stick was hit on it, and it was immediately bounced off. Come again. Cao Yang had a hostile look on his face. He could only be beaten passively and could not fight back. There was a wave of anger hidden in his chest, and he felt that it would explode at any time. Cao Yang, take a break, my hands are almost numb. A boy with a baseball bat said with a wry smile. Cao Yang paused, nodded, and said, okay, let's practice later. Although these people were in awe of his talent and strength and voluntarily gathered around him, they were all geniuses in martial arts. It was impossible for a top-notch figure to be called around by him wantonly as his servant. After all, take care of their emotions. Seeing Cao Yang nod his head, the boys breathed a sigh of relief and sat down to rest one after another. While several people were chatting idly, a person rushed in from the outside like desperately. Cao 723, Cao Yang, something big thing happened. The visitor was out of breath, and it must be very urgent to be able to run a formal warrior like this. What's the big deal? What else can be the big deal in training camp? Cao Yang replied lightly, and suddenly seemed to have thought of something, stood up abruptly, a ray of light shot out from his eyes, and said, Meng Jinhe broke the record? Or is it Charlene? The visitor stroked his chest while calming his breath, shook his head and said, it's not Meng Jinhe or Charlene. Who is that? It's Liu Sheng. That Liu Sheng from Beihe City. The person who came here could be regarded as smoothing his breath, and finished speaking in one breath. Liu Sheng entered the quadruple gravity training room. Hey, I can't tell, anyway, it is about to break your record, go and have a look. Liu Sheng. Cao Yang was taken aback. It was a name he had never thought of. Go and have a look. Cao Yang thought for a while, grabbed the clothes on the ground and strode out of the training ground. 4 times the gravity is almost familiar. Liu Sheng stopped his physical movements, his face was full of calm. The gravity training room was much more interesting than he had imagined. It should be said that it is very suitable for his current state. After a month of specialization, Liu Sheng, whose ability in all aspects has skyrocketed, just needs such an environment that can constantly provide him with pressure to settle down. Double gravity has almost no effect on me, it just feels a little more burden on the body, as if the air has become thicker, and it takes more effort to do the same action as usual. With 4 times the gravity, this feeling is even more obvious. In the beginning, even breathing was a little uncomfortable. But it's just uncomfortable, and it's the same if you get used to it. Sheng thought, picked up the remote control on the ground, and pressed the plus button on it. Gravity, doubled again. 5 times the gravity. A sudden pressure suddenly added to Sheng. Sheng felt his body sinking heavily, as if he had suddenly plunged into a quagmire, and it became more and more difficult to move. This pressure is almost. Sheng's eyes lighted up slightly, and he took a deep breath. Now, I can try out my new harvest during this time. Switch, the breath. In an instant, Sheng's breathing changed. This is a change that cannot be described in detail. Sheng's chest began to rise and fall in accordance with a strange rhythm, and his body also swayed strangely. His feet gripped the ground tightly. Through the thick floor cushion, it seemed that an invisible force poured into his body continuously through the ground. This is one of Sheng's harvests during this month's penance. One of the special breathing methods learned from the advanced chapter of Natural Breathing Method. Breath of the Earth. Although Sheng is still far away from comprehending the corresponding earth attribute inner strength, what he can grasp now is enough to greatly benefit his strength. For example now. Hiss. Outside the training room, the crowd gathered here to watch all gasped when they saw this. At this time, the door of this small room was already full of people. At the same time, people kept running in and rushing over from the 8 entrances and exits of the stadium. Among them, there is Cao Yang who just arrived with someone. How? Has Sheng come out? How long has he been in the quadruple gravity chamber? As soon as Cao Yang arrived, he asked. Before the person he questioned had time to answer, he heard a violent exclamation from the crowd at the glass window. Damn, 5 times the gravity. Sheng adjusted the gravity to 5 times. My dear, if I go in, I will probably be crushed to death. Abnormal. 5 times the gravity. Cao Yang was stunned for a moment when he heard these discussions, and then rushed over quickly, pushing aside the crowd with a sullen face. Grass mud horse, pick up your old man. A boy who was dragged out by Cao Yang's shoulders turned his head angrily, only to meet Cao Yang's frighteningly gloomy face. I froze for a moment. Cao Yang. Cao Yang is here. The news quickly spread in a small area. People around the one-way glass turned their heads one after another, and looked at Cao Yang with strange eyes. Now there's a good show to watch. Someone muttered secretly. Cao Yang pretended not to hear the sound, and looked straight into the room. In the room, a tall and straight young man was standing in the center of the room, his body was swaying slightly with a special rhythm, his breathing was gentle, and his handsome face was calm. Just at the first glance, Cao Yang's pupils shrank suddenly. Can he still stand up? Cao Yang turned his head to look at the small display next to him in disbelief. The crowd took the initiative to give way to a line of sight, and someone jokingly shouted, "Don't look at Cao Yang, it is indeed 5 times, and the display screen is not broken." Ha ha! There was a slight chuckle from the crowd. Cao Yang glared at that person fiercely, then turned to look back at the training room, a look of shock and disbelief quickly appeared on his face. 5 times the gravity. It's really 5 times the gravity. How did Sheng manage under such pressure? He, Cao Yang, has a mysterious and powerful talent warrior teacher who guides online every night. He has so many points that he can't run out. He spends 10 times more than others in the gravity training room every day, and his blood value progresses by leaps and bounds. Under so many unique conditions, he only dared to try quadruple gravity a week ago. It took a week to achieve more than 3 minutes in quadruple gravity. And still can't move around. Can't move at all. Under 4 times the gravity, it is hard to even blink, let alone stand and shake like Liu Sheng. How on earth did he do it? Didn't he just come out of retreat from the dormitory today? Cao Yang pressed his hands on the one-way glass window, staring fixedly at the room, with a ferocious and exaggerated expression, even a little funny. At this moment, no one could laugh. All of these people's attention was also on Liu Sheng in the room, with complex expressions that were hard to describe. Liu Sheng is back. In the crowd, someone suddenly said something softly. There were quite a few people who heard these words, and their expressions all fell silent. Yes. Liu Sheng, back. Liu Sheng, who shocked and oppressed everyone when he entered the camp, was like a demon king. Now, come back. The breath of the earth can reduce the pressure by about 10% under 5 times the gravity. Liu Sheng silently came up with a statistic in his heart. It's already an amazing effect. After all, among the several breathing methods that I have comprehended, the attainment of the breath of the earth is the shallowest. It is not the direction of my major. The concept of the natural breathing method is already very obvious, it is the unity of man and nature, so that practitioners can display their combat power 100%, or even 120% in any environment. The power of the 11th level exercises can only be understood after real practice and experience. That kind of level and pattern is simply not comparable to ordinary exercises. 5 times the gravity is almost suitable for my current cultivation in a normal state. Under 5 times the gravity, I should be able to barely do the movements in the star body training technique. If it goes up, it will probably be enough. However, Liu Sheng knew that this was in a normal state. Stellar body refining technique cannot be easily exposed to the eyes of outsiders. So, he still has to look for pressure. More pressure. The pressure that can push him to the limit. In this case, then continue to increase the gravity multiple. Liu Sheng calmly picked up the remote control at hand and lightly pressed a certain button. Ask for an initial order, ask for a full order, ask for a monthly ticket, ask for flowers. 0.728 times the gravity, breaking the record, shocking. 10/10. Liu Sheng is almost unable to hold on, and is about to turn off the gravity effect. After all, it's under 5 times the gravity. It's amazing to be able to last for so long. If you ask me, I can't support it for a second. Outside the training room, everyone saw Liu Sheng's movement of holding the remote control through the window. Almost everyone subconsciously believed that Liu Sheng had reached his limit and was about to stop practicing. Is anyone timing it? How long has Liu Sheng stayed in the 5-fold training room? Has he broken the record? Someone suddenly shouted. Everyone reacted immediately. That's right, 5 times the training room, this is enough to break the record of the training camp's gravity training room. But whether the record is broken or not, we have to read it to know. Is anyone clocking it? Some people followed suit. What the fuck, isn't there a time record on the display? You can tell at a glance. Someone replied speechlessly. Yeah, why didn't I think of that? Immediately, a group of people cheered and gathered in front of the display screen at the door of the room. Cao Yang was also among the crowd, his expression was calm, but his eyes were eager. Obviously he was also very curious about this matter. A group of people crowded in front of the small display screen, each of them desperately moved forward, until the faces of the few people in the front were almost stuck on the display screen. The people behind kept urging, how much time? How much time? You read it, so tell me quickly. Grass mud horse, I'm so crowded by you that I can't see it. A boy yelled with a thick neck. The people behind slowly backed up a little. The display screen is finally visible. The few 02 people in the front row tried to stare at the numbers on the display screen with wide eyes, for fear of misreading a decimal point. Under 5 times the gravity mode, the opening time is 7 minutes. Hearing the beginning of 7 minutes, the crowd immediately burst into an uproar. Damn, 5 times the gravity for more than 7 minutes. Has this already broken the record? It's too perverted. Lu Sheng, what's it called? If you don't sing, you're already a blockbuster. Did you say he was in retreat a month ago, practicing some peerless martial arts? With this achievement, I'm afraid Lu Sheng is already a third-level warrior. Tisk tisk. Listening to the discussions in his ears, Cao Yang felt mixed feelings. He suddenly felt that his efforts for more than a month had been in vain. What is the online guidance from the mysterious teacher? What is the time spent in the gravity training room every day is 10 times that of others. It's all a joke. 3 minutes under 4 times gravity, and 7 minutes under 5 times gravity are not the same concept at all, okay? The difference in this. Cao Yang's pride was shattered at this moment, and he felt like a clown standing in the crowd. How much is 7 points? You haven't finished yet. Yes, 7 minutes and seconds, read it quickly. There was another commotion in the crowd. But at this time, the few people in the front line stopped talking. His head was stuck straight in front of the screen, his expression was blank, and he couldn't say a word. Damn, occupy the latrine and don't shit. A fat man with a fiery temper couldn't stand it anymore, so he rushed up and pushed several people away. It's just a few numbers, is it so difficult to pronounce? As he spoke, he looked up at the screen to solve the problem. Seeing this, the whole person froze in place for an instant, without making a sound. After the fat man pushed and pulled, the people in the front part dispersed a lot, and the people behind also took advantage of the opportunity to see the whole picture of the display screen. All of a sudden, everyone was quiet. His eyes were fixed on the small display screen, his expression was like seeing a ghost. Nima. Someone choked out a sentence, opened and closed it, but couldn't get a word out of it. I saw that on the small display screen, a line of clear words showed. 6 times gravity is on. 6 times the gravity. Lu Sheng did not leave the practice room. His action of holding the remote control is not to pause, but to continue to increase the gravity multiplier. Cao Yang stood in the crowd, staring at the big 6 characters on the screen with a dull expression. At this moment, under the watchful eyes of everyone, the numbers on the display change again. The original 6 times the word, quietly changed into 1, 7. 7 times the gravity is on. In an instant, the crowd exploded. Today, 2 more students couldn't persist and applied to leave the camp. Dong Qingxiu casually threw the 2 documents aside, and said indifferently. Holding the coffee, Qin Shaojun comforted him with a casual expression, they are all spoiled and spoiled geniuses in the city. It's normal that they can't stand the anger here and can't hold on. Well. Can't stand this little bit of anger? Can't hold on to this little difficulty? Then when they go to the battlefield and fight with strange beasts, can they hold on? Dong Qingxiu said with a sneer, geniuses in the safe zone are never considered geniuses, and geniuses who have experienced the baptism of the battlefield are called real geniuses. You're just too serious. Qin Shaojun shook his head and said, actually, the quality of this class of students is quite good. I estimate that at least 80% of them will be able to persist until the day the camp is closed. I hope. Dong Qingxiu ended the topic, and was about to continue reviewing the documents at hand, when suddenly, the computer in front of her issued a crisp message notification tone. Ding dong! A trace of surprise appeared on Dong Qingxiu's face. When she clicked on the message, she was overjoyed by the first words that caught her eyes. Someone broke the historical record of the gravity training room. Dong Qingxiu said something. Qin Shaojun, who was beside him with an old god, immediately became interested. So fast? Who? Cao Yang? This kid can do it. Qi Meng taught well. I can find time to treat him to dinner later. Dong Qingxiu's expression became more and more strange after reading the news. He suddenly raised his head, looked at Qin Shaojun in a daze, and said, "It's not Cao Yang, it's someone you can never imagine. I absolutely can't think of it." Qin Shaojun was a little puzzled. "Who is it?" Dong Qingxiu looked into Qin Shaojun's eyes, and said word by word, "It's a saint." Puff. Qin Shaojun just drank the coffee in his mouth and sprayed it out, spilling it all over the ground. "Who? Lu Sheng? That kid is out? After staying at home for more than a month, can you still break the record?" Qin Shaojun asked a series of questions, his face full of disbelief. Dong Qingxiu nodded, and thought about it. It seems that he hasn't been completely wasted for more than a month. Coupled with his original strength, it is still possible to create this achievement. Qin Shaojun held the cup, wiped his mouth and said in a daze, "That's right. But this kid still gave us a big surprise. It seems that the whetstone project can continue." Dong Qingxiu smiled, and said confidently, "Since Lu Sheng is back, that's great. I'm worried that Charlene's strength has improved too fast, and no one in the training camp can put any pressure on her. Lu Sheng's current strength is almost perfect. It can be used as Charlene's sharpening stone." Dong Qingxiu paused for a moment, and said with a more emphatic tone, "One person's whetstone. Look what you can." Qin Shaojun shook his head and walked over to Dong Qingxiu. "Show me, Lu Sheng's record-breaking results. I remember that the highest record in the gravity training room seems to be how many minutes under 5 times the gravity." As Qin Shaojun said, he walked to Dong Qingxiu, and Dong Qingxiu gave him the computer. He was about to pull out the news records for Qin Shaojun to check. Suddenly, ding dong! Another new message came in. Another record-breaking news about the gravity training room. Qin Shaojun showed surprise on his face, and clicked on the news to see. Damn, 6 times the gravity. 750 is a land monster. Dong Qingxiu was also a little surprised. It seems that Lu Sheng's progress in this month is beyond our imagination, this kid. Dong Qingxiu hadn't finished speaking yet. Ding dong! A third message arrives. It is still a gravity training room, and it is still a reminder to refresh the record. Still. It's Lu Sheng. 777. 7 times the gravity. Qin Shaojun was so shocked that he stuttered. He suddenly turned his head to look at Dong Qingxiu. How much strength does this kid hide? Is he a fucking monster? Dong Qingxiu also had a shocked expression, not knowing how to answer Qin Shaojun. "I have to go to the gravity training room." Qin Shaojun couldn't hold back, and said quickly. Dong Qingxiu's eyes flickered, and she also stood up. "I will go with you." "Okay, let's go meet that kid together." The two of them were ready to leave. At this moment, ding dong! A crisp and pleasant voice sounded in the room. This voice seemed to have some kind of special magical power, which attracted Qin Shaojun and Dong Qingxiu to look at the computer screen together. Qin Shaojun didn't know what kind of mood he was in. He moved the mouse slowly, and clicked on the message. When the words 8 times gravity and Lu Sheng printed in the news jumped into his and Dong Qingxiu's eyes, the expressions of the two were in the same room. There was a deathly silence in the room. Then, there was Qin Shaojun's long exhalation. "Lu Sheng, what level is he now?" No one answered him. Neither can Dong Qingxiu. The 30,000 word explosion update is over, and the results of the first order are not very satisfactory, but thank you for your support. I continued to code words, and I will try to throw them out at 12 o'clock every day after updating. 073 Qi and blood increase. I am not afraid of breaking the knife. 1. Yang Yuan stood on tiptoe, trying hard to wipe the stains on the glass. After finishing this work, I can get 5 points, and with the savings I saved before, it is enough for me to ask the instructor for advice once, and the rest can be used to enter the agility training room. With the back of her hand, Yang Yuan wiped the fine sweat oozing from the tip of her nose, thinking about it. It stands to reason that with the strength of her official warrior, which is several times stronger than that of a normal adult male, this little work will not make her sweat at all. But I can't stand it. In one morning today, Yang Ming traveled to at least 7 or 8 places, doing 4 or 5 different jobs. Each job was completed in less than 20 minutes. Under such a high-intensity workload, with Yang Ming's physique, his physical strength is almost bottoming out. Subscribe to Chinese Novel Audio Wave. Thump thump. A girl ran in quickly. Seeing the girl, Yang Yuan hurriedly said, "You came just in time. I don't know what's wrong today, a lot of jobs have not been snatched up, I've already earned 40 or 50 points. Come on." The girl ran up to her and looked at her like she was looking at an alien. "It's a pity I've been looking for you for so long, I didn't expect you to have the mind to clean the windows here." Yang Yuan squeezed the rag in her hand, and said strangely, "Why can't I clean the windows here? You have a lot of points." The girl stomped her feet heavily, and quickly said in a rather helpless tone, "Everyone is going to the gravity training room, why don't you go?" Yang Yuan's heart skipped a beat. Today's collective assessment? Why didn't I know? Why didn't anyone notify me? What assessment? It's Liu Sheng. Liu Sheng has come out. The girl's face was glowing, and she shouted excitedly, and he broke the record in the gravity training room as soon as he came out, not to mention how exaggerated it is, now most of the people in the training camp are watching there. The girl chattered endlessly. Just halfway through the conversation, Yang Ming suddenly disappeared in front of him, leaving only a lonely bucket with a rag hanging on the edge of the bucket that will not be wrung dry in the future. Turning around, a figure was almost running out of the stadium gate. "I'm going, so fast. Are you using it to fly?" The girl screamed exaggeratedly, and hurriedly chased after her. 7 times the gravity. Liu Sheng's body maintained a slight posture, slowly resisting and adapting to the pressure on his body. The breath of the earth has been used to the extreme by him. With continuous use under high gravity pressure, Liu Sheng's understanding of the breath of the earth is gradually becoming deeper. It's almost the limit. Liu Sheng thought silently in his heart. After all, the multi-gravity environment is not actual combat, and the test is the blood, physique, and will of the warrior. Under this kind of pressure evenly applied to all parts of the body, techniques such as stellar force have no effect at all. Then try that trick. Taking a deep breath, the mental power quickly entered his body like flowing water, reaching the position of the heart. The spiritual power turned into silk, and in just a few breaths, an invisible heart exactly like Liu Sheng was woven. It's a pity that this uncanny scene cannot be seen by outsiders, otherwise they will be so shocked that their jaws will drop. The skill and hard work involved in this is amazing. This invisible heart, which almost represents most of the hard work of Liu Sheng who has been working day and night for more than a month, perfectly overlaps with Liu Sheng's original heart. Both hearts beat in unison. In an instant, a majestic force gushed out from Liu Sheng's heart. In the absolutely quiet environment of 7 times the gravity, Liu Sheng could almost hear the sound of blood rushing through his veins. That's his soaring qi and blood value. With the increase of qi and blood value, the pressure brought by 7 times the gravity is also lightened. Just after constructing the heart part, the qi and blood have been strengthened by nearly 10%. The effect of the Divine Illumination Pluto Sutra is really terrifying. Liu Sheng slowly stretched his body bound by gravity. Vitality and blood are the foundation of warriors, and the improvement of vigor and blood value can improve the strength of warriors in all aspects, not as simple as strength +1 or speed +1. Nearly 10% of the increase in qi and blood value brought Liu Sheng a huge boost. And unlike techniques such as star power, this kind of increase does not require any physical fitness. Also different from ordinary qi and blood boosting methods, the boosting of the Shen Zhao Pluto Sutra does not have any side effects and lasts longer. Liu Sheng can feel that his mental power is slowly being consumed, and this increase will always exist until his mental power is completely consumed. Then increase the pressure. Liu Sheng felt that after his qi and blood were boosted, the limit he could bear was raised again, so he picked up the remote control at hand and pressed the plus button again. 8 times the gravity. A strong pressure was exerted on Liu Sheng. Boom! Liu Sheng couldn't stand stably, and fell to the ground on one knee. After all, he still underestimated the terrifying pressure brought by 8 times the gravity. It felt as if 10,000 small rollers were rolling crazily on every surface of his body, and Liu Sheng could even hear the creak sound of his muscles and bones squeezing and colliding with each other. Even the breathing method of the earth has little effect under such terrifying pressure. It's almost at the limit. At this time, Liu Sheng was fortunate that he was practicing star body refining. This 11th level supreme body training technique usually tempered his external physique, but also tempered and strengthened his internal organs. The strength of his internal organs far exceeds that of ordinary fighters, otherwise Liu Sheng may have fallen to the ground injured due to internal organs squeezing and bleeding. Under this condition, the consumption of mental power has also become much faster. Every extra second is a challenge for me. But Liu Sheng breathed slowly, and the light in his eyes danced. Isn't that exactly what I want? Giggle. Liu Sheng's eyes were firm, and he straightened his back bit by bit. 8 times the gravity. Outside the room, a person looked dull, and murmured, he still wants to stand up. A group of people whose faces were filled with shock and disbelief could no longer find suitable words to describe their specific inner feelings at this moment. Under a series of huge shocks, all words and expressions seemed too pale. They just want to be sure of one thing now: are they dreaming right now? Is there such a possibility that I fell asleep exhausted in the process of practicing hard, and now I am still living in a dream and have not been awakened? Yang Yuan tightly covered her mouth with her hands, fearing that she would cry out because of being too excited. In her beautiful eyes, only the boy in the one-way glass, Xi Kan, who was trying to get up from the ground bit by bit, was left. Why do I feel so excited when I see Liu Sheng coming back? Is it just because they are also from Beihe City? Perhaps even Yang Yuan herself was not aware of this problem. Cao Yang stood in the crowd, the corners of his eyes twitching slightly, his hands clenched into fists, his nails digging deep into his palms, almost piercing his skin. The tingling sensation from his palm reminded him of the reality of the scene in front of him all the time, but he would rather he was dreaming now. Fuck! How could it be so outrageous? Cao Yang roared in his heart. This guy! Good king, good! Qin Shaojun and Dong Qingxiu stood in the distance, and with their eyesight, they could clearly see the scene in the training room through the one-way glass window. Next to him was a soldier holding a laptop computer, which displayed the real-time monitoring in the training room. It can be seen that the soldiers were also greatly shocked, and the hands holding the computer were still trembling slightly. He remembered the student on the screen. On the first day of entering the camp, he beat a lieutenant of a third-level warrior half to death, and it seemed that he had just recovered and was discharged from the hospital some time ago. It's hard not to be impressed by this monster-like existence. It seems that this monster has become more terrifying now. Are you still confident that Charlene can defeat him? Qin Shaojun asked Dong Qingxiu. Dong Qingxiu couldn't see any joy or anger on her face. She was silent for a while, and said calmly, "Before the master, the power of a spiritual master is beyond your imagination." All right. Qin Shaojun nodded helplessly, but muttered in a low voice, "A woman with a hard mouth, isn't she afraid that the whetstone is too hard, and the knife will be broken?" At this time, Dong Qingxiu's eyes suddenly moved, and she whispered, "Come out." Qin Shaojun raised his head and looked into the distance. 074. Do you think Liu Sheng can break my record? 2. Drop. Accompanied by the sound of the reminder, everyone's eyes unconsciously looked at the display screen outside the room. Many people's hearts were hanging slightly, for fear that the number on the display would accidentally jump up by another frame. Under 8 times the gravity, hold on for 4 minutes, 3 seconds, 2-4. Someone almost groans and reads a value on the display. The crowd stirred for a moment, then fell into a collective silence. Sometimes there are too many shocks, and when you are numb by the shock, you will get used to it. This is not the real limit of Lu Sheng. Someone was silent for a while, then spoke slowly. No one refuted, and many people looked complicated. Indeed, almost everyone who has ever talked about the gravity chamber said so. In that environment, it is really difficult to move your little finger when you really reach the limit of your physical strength, and you have to be helped by someone outside to turn off the gravity. On the other hand, Lu Sheng. Not only can you press the remote control to close the gravity chamber by yourself, but you can even stand up. The gap between the two can no longer be described as big. Crunch! The door to the gravity chamber slowly opened from the inside. Everyone looked stunned, and then saw a handsome young man with a tall figure and a calm face walking out of the room. Lu Sheng. Seeing the dark group of people around the door, Lu Sheng didn't have any fluctuations on his face. After he stopped practicing, he let go of his highly concentrated mental power, and he had already noticed the existence of these people. Lu Sheng, towel. A medium-sized, slightly chubby boy took the initiative to hand a clean white towel in front of Lu Sheng. Lu Sheng froze for a moment, quickly took the towel, nodded at the boy, and said, "Thank you." He vaguely remembered this boy, who seemed to be one of the students from Beihai City who came to participate in the training this time. "No. You're welcome, it should be." The boy's face was flushed red, and he was so excited that he spoke incoherently. It seemed that it was an extremely honorable thing for Lu Sheng to take his towel. A few people next to him even showed envy to him. Lu Sheng grabbed the towel to wipe off the thin sweat on his body, and turned to check the results on the display screen. After seeing the specific statistical time, Lu Sheng showed a pity expression on his face. "If I had known it would take so little time, I would not have deducted 3 hours of points, and a lot of points would have been wasted." But Lu Sheng remembered something, took out his ID card and swiped it on the display screen. He should have broken the gravity room record this time. If I remember correctly, there are points rewards for breaking records. Did he? A value pops up on the display. Remaining points, 4,335 points. Hiss! Before Lu Sheng could speak, a gasping sound came from behind him. A full 4-digit integral value. Many people subconsciously reached out and touched the ID cards in their pockets, a number popped up in their hearts, and then a sad expression appeared on their faces. It is estimated that the total points of everyone present are less than half of Lu Sheng's. The point value that most people have is less than a fraction of Lu Sheng's. Is this the difference between people? No, this is the gap between Akba, people and monsters. Many people think firmly in their hearts. More than 4,000 points? Lu Sheng nodded, almost enough to squander himself. Even if you spend every day in the training room until the end of the training camp, these points may not be spent. Where should I go next? Lu Sheng thought for a while, and quickly determined the direction. The crowd dispersed like a tide and parted to both sides, spontaneously making way for Lu Sheng. Lu Sheng casually walked in one direction, with a light breeze all over his body. A group of people followed closely, and deliberately kept a certain distance from them. The scene is like a tiger traveling in the forest, followed by all the beasts behind him. Where is he going? Dong Qingxiu frowned as she looked at Lu Sheng's figure. Qin Shaojun glanced in one direction, and thoughtfully said, "It seems to be the Shen Forum." Dong Qingxiu's eyes flickered, and she suddenly said, "Call Charlene over for me." The training is over, and the results of this training, the completion of the second stage is 87%. Congratulations to warrior number RU284363, your agility has surpassed 52% of trainers. A pleasant reminder sounded, and Daohe stopped his movements with a smile on his face. In this training, the degree of completion of the second stage has increased by another 6%. The transcendence has also increased a lot. Transcendence is a feature of the Shenfa training room. It is said that every time a warrior achieves in the agility training room, it will be uploaded to the Martial League terminal to obtain his world ranking in agility. Although this ranking does not include all warriors in the world, it is quite authoritative. I have completed 87% of the second stage of body training, surpassing 52% of the warriors in the world. More than half of it. How many warriors in the whole world have used the Shenfa training room? How could this half have hundreds of millions? Not to mention that there may be many people who are stronger than themselves in martial arts. Moreover, this result may continue to improve when he makes a breakthrough in martial arts. The future is promising. Surrounded by a great sense of accomplishment and self-satisfaction, Meng Jinhe walked out of the training room lightly. He was ready to meet all kinds of admiration from those outside the door. But the expected scene did not happen. The training room was empty, and the group of people who used to be waiting at the door were all gone. Not even a water towel. What happened? Meng Jinhe was a little puzzled. Fortunately, he was working so hard in the training room just now, so he just wanted to shock the others. I didn't expect that there was no one, and I dared to wink at the blind man. Huffing. A boy with dark skin and a somewhat simple and honest appearance ran towards Meng Jinhe quickly. Ah, into the river, you come out. The boy cried out in surprise when he saw Meng Jinhe. Yes. Meng Jinhe smiled, looked at the display screen outside the training room, and said, today is in good condition, and I have made a lot of progress. Meng Jinhe also wanted to mention the matter that he had completed 87% today, but the boy ignored him at all, and just said quickly, oh, since you're done, come here quickly, everyone is here woolen cloth. After speaking, the boy grabbed a bottle of water on the ground, turned around and ran away without looking back. Well. Meng Jinhe froze in place, not knowing how to express himself. He looked in the direction the boy was leaving, and then he noticed that not far from him, a large group of people gathered there. It is also in front of a Shenfa training room, separated from Meng Jinhe by 4 or 5 training rooms, and the crowd is bustling, very lively. Could someone break my record? Meng Jinhe's first reaction was to think of this possibility. Otherwise, it is also a matter of cultivating agility, so there is no reason for others to look at other people instead of Meng Jinhe. Meng Jinhe quickly walked to that position. When he arrived at the place, Meng Jinhe glanced at the dense crowd, found the group of people who were usually with him, and joined them. Who are you looking at? Meng Jinhe grabbed a person's shoulder. Into the river. When the man saw Meng Jinhe, he quickly stepped aside and greeted him warmly, come on, come to me quickly, this seat is good. Who are you looking at? Meng Jinhe was a little impatient. Lu Sheng, we are watching Lu Sheng, Lu Sheng is coming in. A person next to him quickly replied. Lu Sheng? The Lu Sheng from Beihe City. Meng Jinhe was stunned for a moment, and then said with a smile, you don't think Lu Sheng can break my record, do you? Crazy. The person who answered him looked him up and down with a strange look, and turned his head away from him. Meng Jinhe felt baffled. What's wrong? Was he still wrong? As far as Lu Sheng's virtue of not going out for a month, his strength has degraded, so what's so good about it? Blow him and not me? Crazy. At this time, the familiar boy next to him secretly pulled Meng Jinhe's arm, and said in a low voice, Jinhe, don't say such things first. Lu Sheng just broke the record in the gravity training room of our training camp. He persisted abruptly for more than 4 minutes, blinding Caoai. Now he is preparing to practice agility, in case he surpasses you. Look and say, look and say. OM. Meng Jinhe's head was already dazed when he heard words like 8 times gravity. The mouth gradually opened wide, and an expression of disbelief appeared on his face. 8 times the gravity? 4 minutes? Lu Sheng? Did you make a mistake? If any part of the body touches the light, it is considered a failure. The difficulty of training will increase step by step. Lu Sheng carefully read the introduction to the rules of the Shen Fa training room posted on the wall, and he had a general understanding of the rules of this training room in his heart. My agility has been stuck after breaking through the bottleneck period. For more than a month, although I haven't done much actual combat training in the dream space, the cultivation of the advanced chapter of stellar body refining technique has improved my physical fitness in all aspects. It has improved a lot, plus the growth of qi and blood, and the growth of mental power. There should also be a considerable improvement in body speed, but I don't know how much it has improved. Now is the time to test it out. Lu Sheng thought, reaching out and pressing the training start button on the wall. 075. How did the second stage do and yet end so soon? 3. Drop. A beep sounded as if the machine was starting up. In the next second, several laser probes on the wall emitted red light, and several red light rays shot straight towards Lu Sheng. That's the way it is, so you just need to avoid the rays, right? Lu Sheng turned his body slightly, and the red line swept past him. When he came in, he noticed that the walls around the Shen Fa training room were covered with round holes the size of thumbs. It is densely packed, and there are no less than tens of thousands of them in total. It now appears that each of these holes may emit light. From this point of view, being unable to predict which direction the light will come out from is also one of the difficulties in agility training. But this difficulty does not exist for me. Lu Sheng thought about it, like a prophet, standing there and tilting his head. A red light passed his ear and shot on the opposite wall. Mental strength. Lu Sheng's huge mental power enveloped the entire agility training room, accurately grasping every change of the laser probe. Before the red light is emitted, he can easily know the direction of all the light rays. It's almost like cheating. It is still a bit difficult for me to predict the opponent's attack by capturing the changes in the opponent's muscles and expressions during the battle. But if it is a machine, it is simply not too easy. Lu Sheng stood in the center of the room, thinking about this, while moving his body randomly, avoiding the strafing rays of light. The posture is calm, as if he is not doing body training, but just getting up early to do morning exercises in the park. Outside the training room, a group of onlookers looked at each other in blank dismay. They looked at each other, and saw the deep shock in their eyes. Incredibly shocking. How did he do it? Someone couldn't help asking. No one can answer. Even Meng Jinhe, who has always boasted of being a genius in physical skills and has great self-confidence, was dumbfounded. Walking into the Shen Fa training room, who is not concentrating, trembling, and highly nervous? There are tens of thousands of laser probes in the training room, and no one knows which probes will emit light in the next moment. And as long as one is not paying attention, it is slightly rubbed by the light. Even if it fails, the training will stop immediately and enter the settlement stage. Don't look at Meng Jin, he has reached more than 80% of the second stage. But this does not mean that he can take it lightly and treat it casually in the first stage. At most, it can only be a little more skillful and relaxed than others. But what about Lu Sheng? Are you sure it's his first time entering the Shen Fa training room? Meng Jinhe questioned the boys around him in disbelief. The boy nodded with a complicated expression. Sure, all of us followed him. Meng Jinhe stopped talking. Looking at the figure strolling in the room under the mysterious light, I fell into deep self-doubt. At this time, he heard someone say something. The first stage is almost over. The voice did not fall, only a beep of "D" was heard. Words popped up on the small display outside the room ready to enter the second stage of training. Everyone was silent. How did this kid do it? Is it really the first time he has practiced agility training? Qin Shaojun stared closely at Liu Sheng in the monitor, and said in disbelief, why does it look like he has practiced hundreds of times before? Oh no, even after practicing hundreds of times, he can't be as easy as he is. Although the first stage of training is not difficult, the rearrangement of each training is random and irregular. How does he seem to know where the light will come from every time? Kashika, it's like this again. Too strange. Dong Qingxiu was also staring at the screen, looking up from time to time. Regarding Liu Sheng's strange behavior, she had a faint guess in her heart, but she quickly rejected it. Battle intuition, this kid's actual combat ability is super strong, and his natural combat intuition is definitely not weak. It's not a big deal for him to want to do this. Dong Qingxiu explained slowly. Qin Shaojun swears, the fighting instinct is the fighting instinct, and the prophet of the unknown is the prophet of the unknown, I can still tell the difference. But before he could say anything, a quiet girl walked up to the two of them. Hello Chief Instructor, hello Deputy Chief Instructor. When Dong Qingxiu saw the girl, her eyes softened a little, and she said, you're here, I'll show you something. Afterwards, Dong Qingxiu greeted Qin Shaojun. Let's get closer so we can see better. Get closer, and Dong Qingxiu can use her mental power to detect the situation in the training room. The first phase is over so soon. Liu Sheng was a little surprised when he heard the notification sound coming from his ear. This first stage ended too soon, and the difficulty was too low. He didn't even force his body skills. What about training? It seems that I can't continue to cheat by relying on mental strength, otherwise I won't get the effect of exercise at all, so I can use it when necessary. As Liu Sheng thought about it, the mental power that enveloped the training room quietly shrank back. Suddenly, Liu Sheng's expression changed slightly. He noticed that not long after his mental power was withdrawn, another spiritual power immediately took over the practice room, and even swept it around him, unscrupulously. Judging from the strength of mental power, it should belong to Dong Qingxiu. An idea suddenly popped up in Liu Sheng's mind. If Dong Qingxiu is here, it seems that I can implement my plan. Meanwhile, practice outdoors. A wave of fluctuation flashed across Dong Qingxiu's face, and she secretly said in her heart, sure enough, I was thinking too much. Turning his head, he said to Charlene beside him, you should observe Liu Sheng's strength carefully, he should be your biggest opponent in this training camp. Charlene snorted and nodded. Then he tried to find out his own spiritual power, and penetrated into the Shen Fa training room little by little. Under the detection of spiritual power, Liu Sheng's figure seemed to be standing in front of her. Charlene couldn't help shivering slightly, and swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Come on, Charlene, you can do it. This person may not be as scary as you imagined. Defeat him, eliminate the shadow, and make up for the spiritual loophole. Come on, you can do it. Charlene desperately cheered herself up in her heart, staring at Liu Sheng intently. I have to say that this person's figure is still very good, and he looks good. Charlene looked at Liu Sheng's streamlined and well-proportioned muscles, slender and tall body, and couldn't help but a thought came to her heart. Let me touch it and feel how powerful he is. Well, just touch it. Just one click. It is simply to perceive Liu Sheng's strength. Charlene comforted herself, then stretched out her spiritual power, and landed on Liu Sheng carefully. Zero ask for flowers. At the moment when the mental power dropped, a strong electric shock came back suddenly. Charlene let out an ah and quickly withdrew her mental power. Then she saw Liu Sheng in her field of vision took a deep look in her direction, his eyes full of warning. He can see me? Does he know it's me touching him? Charlene was stunned for a moment, and stood there blankly, motionless. What happened? Dong Qingxiu's doubtful voice came from beside her ear. Charlene came back to her senses and shook her head subconsciously, no. It's nothing. Charlene didn't dare to tell Dong Qingxiu that she didn't know if what she just experienced was an illusion. In the field of vision, Liu Sheng still stood there calmly as before, as if nothing had happened. Probably, maybe, it's really my illusion. Charlene thought to herself. But Charlene glanced at Liu Sheng again, and couldn't help but shrink back her mental strength. This person is still terrifying. It seems more terrifying than before. I'd better stay away from him. 0. Look at it, what does it mean to touch it with your hands? It's too much. It is very impolite to use mental power to detect others at will. If you offend a strong and bad-tempered warrior, it is very likely that you will kill yourself. It is necessary for Liu Sheng to give this guy who hastily detected him a little warning. This reckless mental power, one can know without guessing, it must be Charlene. Instead of taking care of Dong Qingxiu and Charlene, Liu Sheng returned his attention to the agility training in front of him. The second phase has already begun. Swish! 6 red rays shot out at the same time, sweeping towards Liu Sheng in a staggered manner. Compared with the first stage, the rays of the second stage are much stronger in terms of quantity and speed. The red ray is silent, there is no sound of breaking through the air and no trajectory to follow. Without the foreknowledge of mental power, Liu Sheng can only dodge by relying entirely on his own nerve reaction and body speed. Still more than enough. 10% complete. 20% complete. 30% complete. Liu Sheng spent the first 80% of the second stage of training with a calm face. Until after 80%. Only then did he look a little more serious. But only a little seriously. Breaking through the first bottleneck period, the agility that got stuck in the second bottleneck period is still able to face this level of training with ease. After all, the training of those powerful zombies in the dream space is no joke. Walking among a group of zombies is much more exciting than dodging rays in the training room. As the number of rays increases, the scanning speed becomes faster and faster. Liu Sheng gradually felt that his agility that was stuck in the second bottleneck period was a little loose. His accumulation is too strong. As long as there is a little pressure, the breakthrough is quite simple. But just when Liu Sheng began to look forward to an excited ray's momentum came to a screeching halt. Drop! Liu Sheng was taken aback for a moment, and then quickly realized. Gan, the second stage of training is also over. How so fast? Thank you for watching. Continue exploring the fascinating world of Chinese novels with us. Hit that subscribe button on Chinese Novel Audio Wave to stay updated with our latest stories. And never miss out on a great listen.